Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the May 10th Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen Sewer Commission meeting. Before we start, I'd like to make a little request. I am requesting that all cell phones and electronic devices be turned off in a mute position, as not to be turned off or in a mute position as not to disturb the meeting. Any member of the public also has a right to make an audio or video recording of an open session of a public meeting. A member of the public who wishes to record a meeting must first notify and must comply with reasonable requirements regarding audio or video equipment established by the chair so as not to interfere with the meeting. The chair is required to inform other attendees of such recording at the beginning of the meeting. And before we start, we need a clerk. I have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that Kara Winslow be clerk pro tempore for the meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion made in second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We have the roll call, please.
Mr. Chair, 4 selectmen are present. Mr. Holmes is absent, as well as Town Administrator Mark Andrews.
Thank you. Do we have any announcements?
Hold on a second. No.
Citizen participation. Wow, we got two Slavens. Oh, we'll alternate. How's that, Jerry?
I'd just like to know is, are you going on summer schedule for selectmen meeting? Because I came last week, no meeting.
Okay, as of right now, we're going to do the meeting twice a month.
Twice a month.
So just look, it'll be posted. The next meeting will be on the 23rd. It's a Monday. It starts at 6, just before the town meeting. And we'll have them every day as long as the town meeting goes. We'll meet at 6 o'clock. If the town meeting lasts 3 days, then we'll be going for the whole 3 days. If the last 2 days, we'll have it 2 days. Unless we don't finish what's on our agenda for that week.
No, I was just wondering why, because you got the town meeting is the May 23rd. Now with the two new selectmen on board, wouldn't you want their expertise on the articles that we haven't gone through?
Well,
I mean, they would like to know.
well, we already went through it, and we're going to go through it again tonight. So it'll be all done.
Oh, you're going to do it that quick? It's going to be that quick.
Well,
In other words, by every other week, by the time 23rd comes, you got all the answers. Okay, I just wanted to know, that's
right.
all.
Well, our next meeting is the 23rd.
Yeah. I thought maybe you'd want their expertise every week until the town meeting.
Well, I think if we don't have it settled, we will have a meeting during the week. Whichever one.
Good evening, Alan Slavin, Oak Street, Wareham. I have 2 issues I wanted to bring up before the Board of Selectmen and the Town Administrator. The first issue has to do with the onset pier. In doing some background work for several projects that I'm working on, came up basically with looking at some repairs over the next 5 years and had questions about costs and things, you know, whether state or the town would cover. And in looking through it, we found out that back in 1987, there was a project for onset, basically, and part of the project included redoing the pier and a bunch of finger piers, etc. And it was funded separately from the regular onset project, I believe to the tune of somewhere between $2 and $3 million. I wasn't able to find the paperwork inside the town yet. I haven't made a formal request to do that, but I spent time in the Harbor Master's office to try and get some information just so we'd have some ideas. But in looking at it, the license, which is number 1680, and it has to do with inland the waterways, I think it's Chapter 91, there's a license form. It stated very straightforward that the town would have to repair and maintain that pier. It also has questions of the use of the pier. There's some interesting things. I've got paperwork. I didn't make copy for everybody because I'm a firm believer in trying not to kill too many trees. I'll leave you what I've found so far. I don't expect any answers, you know, today, obviously, but just to give you some background. They have mentioned about how the water is being used for water. The main thing that had to do with boating and stuff. Swimming could be kind of put into the mix, but really wasn't the primary goal. So the question is the pier designed for, boating use and boating activities, or was the pier designed to actually have people park there to go to the beach? My question really goes into the idea of the revenue that we generate from the pier. Is that revenue over these, since 1987, and we've been supposed to, with the state, in 2 other projects that we took money from, the state regulated how we did things. Is there something in the original agreement between the town and the state, going back to 1987, that says if we get revenue, are we supposed to have a fund put aside or not? And that's one of my questions. It's a long time now, and there are things going to happen with that pier over the next 5 years, which should be fairly substantial costs. And I don't think the state is going to come forward and pay for it. So I'm just asking if that's the situation, because we have a change in the pier coming forth with automated parking, et cetera, and the income may change in dollar amount. Now, in looking at the income, the harbor master is supposed to receive back, I believe, 50% as the town has set aside for boating and boating items such as whether it's mooring maintenance, whatever else, but it's for boating, not for anything to do with the beaches, et cetera. Out of the funds for, I think it's excise tax and mooring fees. You can actually take up to 100%. The minimum is 50. This town only takes away 50. Marion, as an example, takes the whole 100% and gives it back into the harbor master's office to run everything. We basically right now have the community events committee set up that gets 40% of the parking fee revenues. And here's where it kind of, nothing drifts off simply. If it's 40% goes to the community events, and the harbor master is supposed to get, say, 50% of the revenues associated with different, boating activities and stuff, which that pier technically is, that means 90% of the income goes between those 2 groups, and 10% goes to the town. I don't know, and I believe right now, I'm not sure how we do it at all. The way it makes sense to me is 50% would go to the harbor master, and then the community events would get 40% of the town's 50% balance. But again, I'm not sure how we're doing this at all right now. I don't think anybody's ever looked into it, because it's one of these things that kind of falls to the side. So that's one question I have, to see if we can get some answers on that. My biggest concern is, have we been required to put money away to take care of the repairs going forward? Because from what I can see, the state will not do that. So this could be a large expense looming within the next 5 years for the town. The other area I have some concern with is on the sewer project. We have basically it's a form for getting a tax credit for the betterment. I went ahead and I have one home that's in the project 1 now, which is coming up. We have 2 homes in project 2 that are family homes. We have paperwork that we both basically are supposed to get in order to file for tax credit for the betterment. We found out, checking with the Board of Health, that the health inspector can't sign off because in a particular house number 1, our system hasn't failed yet. We don't have a failed system. He can only sign off if the system fails. Our septic system is perfectly okay. Then I went back to the sewer department director and asked him if he would sign off as a mandated program. He said the program's not mandated. So the issue is, we have basically 3 homes, and none of them will qualify for tax credit. But over the last, we bought one of our properties in '84, passed in '85. We've been under the impression for quite a few years, A, it was a mandated program, and 2, would be getting a tax credit to offset some of our costs. And it looks as if we don't qualify for any of them. It's not just us, it's awful lot of people in the town of Wareham right now. So I would ask that the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator look into this, because people are under the impression that they're going to get a tax credit, and if they file for it, and if the information I have is correct, it means they filed wrong with the IRS, and that's a serious problem.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I have both these items, and I'm happy to look into them. Just on the second item, if I could, through you, Mr. Chairman, we did mail out to all
I have
of...
a form.
Yeah, right, and it did say specifically that the Code of Massachusetts regulations that would interpret the statute, Alan, was very specific to failure of the system. That's my understanding.
But the problem is that in my particular street, in Oak Street, We have a lot of people that have septic systems or even have Title Vs. None of us have failed systems. So until our system fails, we don't qualify. So the question is, one, are we really required to hook up to the system because we don't have a failed system? And two, are we really required to pay a betterment and hook up in the first place where it was not a mandated system? And I know on my particular street, nobody was ever informed that the sewer was coming and had any input at that point. And this goes back to 1984. I mean, it's a real question because, you know, we were under the impression it was mandated and never questioned it. And now we're getting back from this, you know, from the DEP, et cetera. It doesn't qualify because it was never mandated. So I'd appreciate some information on that.
Mr. Chairman, happy to check
Thank
it
you.
out.
Okay. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Good evening, Sandy Slavin. I have 3 things, and I'll make it as quick as possible. The Wareham Garden Club is having its spring plant sale Saturday, May 21st, rain or shine, at Pizzoli Square from 9 to 12. Pizzoli Square is the parking lot next to Eastern Bank, and this is the first time I can remember that the Garden Club has committed to have its sale outside. We all have raincoats and we will not melt. But we made potting benches. We've got birdhouses. We've got other homemade garden items, not just plants, perennials, and herbs, but baked items and water plants for sale. So that's Saturday, May 21st from 9 to 12 at Pizzoli Square. Number 2. This Monday, the 16th of May, the Historical Society is having a program with Scott Ridley. 4 years he's been researching the life and history of John Kendrick. You may not know it, but John Kendrick used to live in the town of Wareham at 100 Main Street. It's one of the Historical Society buildings, the yellow one close to the hospital that's peeling paint. Mr. Kendrick, Captain Kendrick, did a lot for the Revolutionary War. He cruised out toward the Pacific and encountered Japan to do some tradings, one of the first people out there to trade. So it will be a very interesting program. That's Monday the 16th, 7 o'clock at 495 Main Street, which is the Methodist Meeting House. We're asking for a donation of $2 to $3 for non-members, and members are free. My third item. It's my understanding that the selectmen have been assigned to various committees. Is that correct?
Yes, they have.
Can you tell me who's assigned to the Open Space Committee? I'm just looking for a list of who was assigned what committees, and I'm.
I don't believe we've got the final list yet.
Okay, and I was sort of hoping that the liaisons, as they're being assigned to various committees, really make an effort to show and become part of the discussions that happen during committees. There has been I would like to have a better communication between the various committees and the Board of Selectmen with the liaisons coming back and reporting on it. And it would be very helpful if a liaison didn't have a conflict of having 2 boards meeting at the same time on the same date. That way that a person can make sure they attend a committee constantly as opposed to having to choose between one and the other because of a conflict of assignments. So
Okay, right now we have, are you finished?
Yes, I was just hoping to have a full list of who's in what.
Okay, I
Committee.
do have the list. I don't know if Mr. Holmes has given it to Shirley in the office to update it,
Okay,
but we do have a list. And the way it works right now, they're assigned, the liaison is assigned to committees. But there's nothing that stops any one of the selectmen from attending any meeting that he or she sees fit to attend.
oh, that would be nice to see him, yes.
Right, because what happens is, like you said, we do have, like even myself, on a Monday and a Wednesday, twice a month, I have 2 at the same time. I have to go to
Yep.
one at 6:30, and whenever that happens, it goes. But we do have them assigned, and they do attend. There's a couple of us here, this Ellen for sure, I know has been to quite a few, even though she's not on it. I think Mike and you, we all have, so that's the way it's going to stand right now. And on the committees, we appoint people to the committees, and we appoint qualified people to the committee. Whether the liaison is there or not, I think you guys function very, very well. In fact, you've been functioning well without liaisons all these years. So I'm not saying liaison has to be there, but you have the members are in there. The only committee that a liaison votes on is community events. The rest of it,
An affordable housing
and
trust.
affordable housing, okay.
Yes.
Right. Other than that, it's the committee's job to do it, and it's their job to come back and report back to us.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Mr. Chair, could we have the office scan that and email each of us a copy of it so we all, thank you.
Okay, update on the triathlon, Tim Richmond.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just introduce this real quick. Tim has been working with us since last year, I have to say. I met him at the onset pier at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and he had a very, very successful event last year. We built upon that. We had some planning sessions and programs in place that I think will bring out more triathloners. Is that the way I would say that, Tim?
Triathletes, correct.
Triathletes, excuse me.
Very
You can tell I'm
good.
not a triathlete, so I'm lucky if I can get one sport done. But the idea is that this was a very, very successful event from a couple of standpoints. Just real quick. One, it was for the participants themselves and their families. I saw a lot of folks that really enjoyed themselves that day. And two, you could not tell that the event happened after the event, Mr. Chairman, which is a good sign that they respect the environment, went about their business in a very orderly way. So with that, Tim.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrews. We appreciate that. So I'm here tonight again, Tim Richmond with Max Performance. We just wanted to give some quick updates as far as the progress of the triathlon. Last year we had just over 500 athletes participate in the race, and this year we will definitely see just north of 650 athletes. So we've seen a nice growth. People really have commented and given wonderful feedback as far as the location. They really commented on the townspeople and all the support staff, and they really, really enjoyed the event. So they're obviously coming back and telling lots of friends. With that increase in turnout, we are working with Chief Stanley and his department in the police department to try to better prepare the roads and make sure we limit that congestion that happens on race weekend. And again, just so everyone at home is watching, it's Saturday, June the 4th, and it's going to kick off at approximately 9:30 in the morning at Onset Pier. We are also continuing to work with a few different groups locally. The Onset Bay Association has been very supportive and will be helping to promote and advertise the event just to get the awareness out there. We're obviously seeing an increase in athletes. We'd like to let the public know about that a little bit more so that people can come and spectate. The Gleason Y, as well as the Friends of the Wareham Bike Path Committee, have all been very, very supportive. If folks are at home and they're interested in volunteering or want to come out and spectate, please get in touch with us. We're always looking for more volunteer groups to come and help out with more participants. We do need more folks to help corral all these athletes together and tell them where to go and find the best places. So we're more than happy to welcome more volunteers in different organizations from high school all the way up to different community groups, and we're happy to reciprocate with charitable donations to those groups as well. Kind of lastly is that we'll be running some public service announcements on Wareham TV just to let folks know about where the triathlon will take place. Again, we talked about it starting at Onset Pier. It's a swim from Shell Point back to the pier. The bike course will be traveling down Onset Avenue to Great Neck Road all the way down to Little Harbor Beach. And that will be busy from approximately 9:45 to 11 a.m. The run course travels near Broad Cove on Onset Ave a little bit, and then towards North Water Ave, and then east on the boulevard. And that'll probably take place through about 12 noon. So we just want to make sure that folks are aware of this in advance, that they can plan their auto travel, hopefully around it, and that they're not inconvenienced, and that they come out and spectate and ring some cowbells and really get out there. So otherwise, you know, we are seeing people come from out of the area quite a bit. Our top 5 towns are Boston, Cambridge, Somerville, Brookline, and Arlington. So people are traveling, and that's great. And we are in contact with a lot of the local inns, and they are filling up fast. So thank you again to Mr. Andrews for your support and working together on this. And we are looking forward to the race coming up in just under a month now. So it's very exciting.
Great.
Thank you very much, Tim, and I'm glad everything went well, and we'll support you any way we can. Thank you.
Very good.
Anything from the...
Yeah, it was a great event, Tim, and I'd also like to thank you for putting it together again this year. Just quickly, I know that you mentioned volunteers. Is there a way that they can reach you?
Yeah, the best access would be at our website, which is maxperformanceonline.com. You can also do a Google search for Escape the Cape Triathlon, and we would be the first result that comes up. And we have a link on the site that you could contact us.
Great. Thank you.
What was that web address again?
I'm sorry?
Max Performance.
Yeah, I'm sorry, maxperformanceonline.com. M-A-X,
Thank you.
performanceonline.com. All right, very good. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim.
Mr. Chair, we have a proclamation for the 2011 Safe Boating Week. You want me to read it?
Okay. Is there anybody here to represent U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary? Thank you.
Carolyn Peruzzi from Flotilla 6-3.
Speak into the mic.
Carolyn Peruzzi from Flotilla 6-3. I'm representing the flotilla to come and ask the town of Wareham to sign this proclamation proclaiming May 21st through the 27th as Safe Boating Week.
Yes, we do have it.
Okay. Would you like me to read it into the record?
Yes.
Whereas recreational boating is fun and enjoyable, and we are fortunate in southeastern Massachusetts to have the resources to accommodate a wide variety of pleasure boating demands, and whereas boating can be a risky sport to those not knowledgeable in regards to navigation rules or drinking alcohol or taking drugs while operating a boat or not wearing a life jacket, and whereas today's life jackets are more comfortable, more attractive, and more wearable than styles of years past, and deserve a fresh look by today's boating public. And whereas wearing a life jacket can reduce the number of boaters who lose their lives by drowning each year by approximately 80%, it is a simple task that has the potential to reduce terrible loss in lives. And whereas the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, created by an act of Congress in 1939, is the uniformed civilian component of the U.S. Coast Guard, supports the Coast Guard across all mission areas, and is responsible for educating the boating public. And whereas the Coast Guard Auxiliary's mission is to impart the important knowledge and skills for reducing human error, improving judgment, and saving lives. Therefore, we now join with the Coast Guard Auxiliary in spreading the message of boating safety, not only during National Safe Boating Week, but also throughout the entire year. And we, the Wareham Board of Selectmen, do hereby support the goals of the North American Safe Boating Campaign and proclaim May 21st through 27th, 2011 as National Safe Boating Week in Wareham, Massachusetts, as the continuation of the year-round effort to promote safe boating. In witness thereof, I urge all of those who boat to wear it and practice safe boating habits. Mr. Chair, I would make a motion for the board to adopt this proclamation.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 4-0-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, on the next one, we're going to postpone it. Mike Judici wouldn't be here until 8:15. He has a prior appointment in family business. So we'll go right straight to Westfield discussion. Anyone here from? Thought I seen Bruce.
Good evening. I'm Bill Heaney with the Westfield RFP Review Committee. Bruce Savageau is to my right. He is the liaison. I'm the chairman. And thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming.
I'd like to start tonight, if I could, with just a general statement that we should be able to answer any questions that you folks have about the document that was distributed to you last Friday. But we're here to talk about the changes that we've made since our last meeting several weeks ago. We consider this document to be complete from our perspective. It is not complete. There are some things that still need to be done, and I'll go over those through my remarks tonight. But you'll recall when we last met, we discussed the two original purposes for housing, senior housing, to be developed at the Westfield site. The first, and these are in no order, but the first was that this type of project would actually solve our 40B problem in the town of Wareham. It was envisioned originally, as we discussed at our last meeting, it was envisioned to bring our housing stock of affordable housing to the 10% threshold or slightly over the 10% threshold that was necessary to reach or to solve the 40B problem. And the other reason that Westfield was considered for development was to provide affordable housing to the seniors of the community. In addition to addressing those two issues in this RFP, we've also put in there a section about repairing the athletic fields, the baseball fields that are there right now, the Little League and the Babe Ruth field. And also, we've included a section, a small section in here about the construction of a soccer field and a football field to be done by the developer, or at least that's the proposal. Starting on page 1, actually the title page, as we turn this document over to you folks and then from the selectmen, I presume, to the town administrator for completion, I just caution that the title page does not have a date on it, and when the RFP is to go out, a date should be included here. Page 2, down at the bottom, we did, in the document that was distributed to you, we inadvertently left a date that we had used as a committee for a placeholder. We left that in the footer. When I submit the editable version to the clerk, after this meeting, I have taken that date out, so that has been corrected. On page 3, where it has the proposals are due, in the last RFP that went out a couple of years ago, that was a 6-week time frame, and between the time the RFP went out and the responses were due back, and so I'd suggest that once you date it, you put in here the date 6 weeks later for proposals due. Okay. Page 4, and just to put you at ease a little bit, I'm not going to go through every page, but the first few in the beginning seem to be having issues. But page 4, section 2, you'll notice is highlighted in yellow. At the time of our last meeting, which was last Thursday, we did not have the census data. I understand it was released either Wednesday or Thursday, but we did not have it at our last meeting. The numbers, information that's in this section that's highlighted is from the old RFP, and so our suggestion is that the town administrator just update these numbers, given that the census data is now available. Okay? The paragraph just below the highlighting, where it starts the Wareham Housing Authority, there is a reference to 103 senior citizens who are 60 years of age or older, and that came from the Selectmen to us, and we just incorporated it in there. But our documentation that we received along the way indicates that that's actually 103 senior citizens on the list who are 55 years of age and older. And so in the editable document, I have changed that as well. Okay. Page 5, in section 2, this has to deal with the availability of sewer to the project. When we first asked the Selectmen as sewer commissioners for certification that sewerage was available for the Westfield project, we were using the number of units of 200. And as a result of our last meeting with the Selectmen, that number got changed to a maximum of 280. As of last Thursday, we did not have a document that said that sewer was available for 280. And so we would urge the Selectmen to verify that, and as sewer commissioners, satisfy yourselves that 280 units of sewerage are available. There has since been a document created, so it should be a relatively easy thing for the Selectmen to do. At the bottom of that page, where we talk about the status of the 40B goals, we have estimated, again, without seeing the final census, but we've estimated that the total housing stock in the town of Wareham as a result of the 2010 census is actually 10,237, and that is the basis upon which we've made our calculations. So when you're looking at or verifying section 2, the highlighted section, if you could just verify that number as well, that would be great. And then the calculations would follow. At the top of page 6, you'll see that that we're saying in order to meet the 10% mandated level of affordable housing in the town, we need to add 270 units of senior affordable housing. Just for your notation purposes, the last time this RFP was sent out 2 years ago, that number was 113. And that was based on the previous census, but it was 113. That comes into play, that number comes into play a little bit when we look at section 5.1a, where we've said the number of units that we're asking for is within a range of 175 to 280. At our last meeting, we debated the size of that range. The size of the range is 105 from the minimum of 175 units to the maximum of 280. That's a rather large range. When you're looking at a project this size, it represents a little more than a third of the project is within the range itself. When we looked back at the previous RFP, the RFP that was done again 2 years ago, there was a range of 50 that was indicated, and the range was between 150 and 200 units. I pointed out previously the 113 units as the affordable housing stock requirement to reach 40B, because you should be noting that that the 150 to 200 units, either the minimum or the maximum, but certainly within the range, exceeded the 113 that were required. Okay, we left the 175 to 280 here because it was actually a vote of the Board of Selectmen at our previous meeting to establish that range. We did not feel that we could just arbitrarily change that. But we draw it to your attention because 175 units, actually 175 to 270 units, will not solve one of the major goals of this project. There has to be 270 units in order to solve the 40B section portion of the project. We developed the 280 number because it gives us a little bit of a cushion. Okay? I'll just draw your attention to page 8, item T, or little t at the bottom, where it says baseball fields renovation. This actually goes on to page 9. This is the section that we inserted. You have not seen this before, the distribution that was made last week. But it is quite detailed in the type of renovation we're suggesting. And also at the bottom of that section is, in little u, is the section requiring the football field and soccer field development. And then we can go all the way to page 19, section 13. And from section 13 through the end or I guess, let me rephrase that. From section 13, which begins on page 19, all the way to page 21, is the part of the RFP that's specific to the purchasing process. And so we did not edit this because we didn't know who the town administrator or how the town administrator, as the purchasing professional in town, would want to structure this part. And so we left this to his expertise to either change or obviously change the dates, but change the people involved and whether or not there's a review or a bidders meeting or any of those kinds of things. And that can be entirely up to you, Mr. Town Administrator, to do with however you'd like. And also there is a section for the exhibits that we've gone around several times trying to get the exhibits in the electronic format. And hopefully in the final document we can arrange that. Be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I do. Now, do you have your proposal all in writing, which you just mentioned to us, so when we give it to our attorney, we can have that?
There's also the lease and the operating agreement, and we did not do the lease or the operating agreement. That's something that we felt, we did discuss it, and in our discussions, we felt that both of those agreements were effectively legal agreements and beyond our pay grade. Pardon?
From the board?
Yeah. It should be vetted by council, I guess, is a better way to
Right.
put that.
That's why we're looking for that list, so we can go over it while the town administrator and our legal counsel. So the list that you just gave, if we can have that with your proposal, that would be fine.
The list of,
What you just mentioned, you had it detailed page by page, so you have, right. So we'll have that with the proposal.
that was distributed to the clerk last week.
Proposal was, but the notes weren't.
Oh, my notes? Oh,
Right.
yeah, you can have my notes.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was getting at.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, if I could, as a suggestion to Mr. Heaney, real quick, your errata sheet, I think the chairman is trying to suggest the items that you've gone over that have been highlighted or marked up on your sheet.
Yep.
If you came in when Janet did the minutes, that we could put them in some form so we could follow them through the proposal and put it in the final form. Does that make sense?
It does. What I can do is I could submit to the clerk or to the town administrator or to anyone those two changes if you'd like. I mean, it's the version that you have right now is a PDF version. You can't edit it, or at least you can't edit it easily. I can distribute the editable version with the changes, and you'll be good to go.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good. Any questions from the board?
Should I send it to the clerk or to the town administrator? Well, I'll send it to both.
Oh, right. Now, when you say clerk, you're talking to someone in the office and not...
No, I'm talking to the clerk of the Board of
Okay, well,
Selectmen.
we'll do both of them, so, just in case. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank Mr. Heaney and the rest of the committee for a job well done, I think. I think that the committee certainly put a lot of effort into this document, and I think it's appreciated by a number of folks in the town, particularly the senior citizens and those young folks who will be running around in some of those fields, hopefully soon. And with that, I would like to move that the Board of Selectmen accept the RFP as written from the Westfield Review and Study Committee for further review, consideration, modification, and final approval.
Motion made, second. Any other discussion?
That would incorporate the two changes, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure that we're...
If there aren't any other, we'll move it. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 400.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just before I leave, and I thank Mr. Schneider for his nice comments, but the committee really did, not myself, but the rest of the committee really did what I'll call yeoman's work. We started out and actually went through every word numerous times, and they all stuck with it and made some real good suggestions and so forth. And I'd just like to extend your thank you to them as well. They did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Authorization to sign bills and documents.
Mr. Chair, we don't have any bills. We do have a request from CDM for an extension, but I'm assuming we're going to discuss that when Mr. Judici gets here. So I'll put that aside. We have regular minutes from July 27th of 2010, which we are going to have to hold because Mr. Holmes is not here. So I'd make a motion that we hold those minutes until our next regularly scheduled meeting. We can vote on them then. We also have minutes from... Yeah, well, do we need a second to hold the... Because there's not three of us here to vote on them, I guess is... Do we need to vote to hold them?
Yeah, yes, we do.
Okay, I'll make a motion to hold. I'll make a motion to hold the minutes from January 11th, 2011 and July 27th, 2010 to our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Said the reason why there's two, because other selectmen, Mrs. Bagley and Mr. Snyder, were on the board at that time.
Right. And we do have the minutes from April 12th, and I was not here, and I do believe that Mr. Schneider had an addition, so I'm going to turn that motion over to him since I have to abstain.
Okay, Mr. Snyder?
Since there will be an amendment to the minutes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to, actually, I'm going to move that we hold them for our next meeting as well, to give Mr. Holmes an opportunity.
Okay,
Comment.
motion. Second. Second by Alan. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 4-0-0. We have license and permits. Cape Verdean, Cape Verdean Festival Association.
Good evening. Mike Roderick, Onset Cape Verdean Association. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but do
Okay.
you have any?
I have none.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, do the new members of the board have any questions for Mr. Roderick?
Right. Well, Mr. Roderick's been over in front of us quite a few years, and the Cape Verdean Festival, as we all know, has been a big draw to Onset, so I think it's self-explanatory, but since we have the new members, any?
I think it's self-explanatory as well, and I'd just like to thank you for taking this on again. This is a great event. I know that I look forward to it every year, and the paperwork seems like it's in order to me, Mr. Chairman, and I'm looking forward to it.
It would seem that Mr. Roderick is pretty accustomed to filling out all these permits.
Yes.
And there are many.
Yes, there
But
are.
I too look forward to it every year. I live in Onset, and the summer wouldn't be the same without the Cape Verdean Onset Festival.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the application from the Onset Cape Verdean Festival Association, care of Michael Roderick, for the use of the Onset Bandshell in Bluffs, and to close off a portion of Union Avenue for their annual Cape Verdean Festival on August 13th, 2011, from 7 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m., with a rain date of August 14th, 2011.
Motion made?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 4-0-0. Thank you, Mr. Roderick.
On behalf of the association, we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to be thinking about the food all night long.
Jackie Lindsay, Onset Village Association. Or Wareham, I should say.
Okay, so this gets replaced with this. Did you get the new one?
More paper?
Hi, Jackie. How are you? Oh, the drawing. Yep, thank you.
Hi, I'm here for the Polar Express in November, 26th and 27th. As you can see from my map, the areas on Merchants Way, which we will close off. It'll just be that small area around the train station. Behind 191, and then up to almost the jug shop. There'll be probably about 5 departures a day. We'll go from 1 to 8 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. It's the weekend after Thanksgiving. On the second page, my map shows that we will be, the train will come down by 495 Main Street. And you can see from the drawing where I have the police department situated for the traffic. We are not closing Elm Street. We will only stop the traffic when the train comes in, which will be approximately every hour and a half. So there will be traffic to go to the shops down there. Anyone have any questions?
Did you sell out last year?
Oh, yes, we sell out in about a day.
So how many tickets do you generally sell for this?
Well, we do, it's 228 tickets a run, so it'll be like 2,280 people that will come in those 2 days to Wareham.
Fantastic.
Mhm. Good?
Any question from the board?
Just one other question. When do the
Sure.
tickets go on sale?
Well, that will be in October, and there will be a lot of advertising on that this year, and it's, again, first come, first served. So the day we sell them, and at that time, that's when you want to be there. They'll be gone this year very early. All the other towns, Sandwich, I think, is getting $38.50 for a ride per person. So we just continue to make it affordable for all of our people.
And as she stated earlier, get your tickets quick because they do go fast. And this is another event that we have in the town of Wareham that draws a lot and does a lot for the town. Thank you very much for all the work you've done.
Thank you.
Fine job, Jackie. Through Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Snyder?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application from the Wareham Village Association, care of Jackie Lindsay, P.O. Box 484, Wareham, Mass., for the use of Merchants Way Train Depot for their 4th annual Polar Swan Express on November 26th and 27th of 2011 from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. It is understood and agreed that the town will be held harmless from all liability as to damage to property or injury to any persons.
Excuse me, Kara, can I change that from 1 to 8 to be on the safe side? Because that's when I would like the barriers up, as the people are coming.
Yes.
Can we? Okay.
From your 2 to 7 and 1 to 8.
All right, I withdraw my motion.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the permit for the Wareham Village Association and care of Jackie Lindsay, P.O. Box 484, Wareham, Mass. For the use of Merchants Way Train Depot for their 4th annual Polar Swan annual Polar Swan Express on November 26th and 27th of 2011 from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. It is understood and agreed that the town will be held harmless from all liability as to damage to property or injuries to any persons.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 400.
Now, we don't have the correct permit to sign tonight, so we'll have to ask the office to, because the hours on this are incorrect.
Right.
So it'll have to be reprinted and we'll have to sign it and then you have to pick it up next time. Just so you know.
Okay, well, I'll be back again because
I know you will.
I also wanted to get a few more things done tonight, but I understand I have to wait to be on the agenda. I just thought we could bang them all out, get them done with.
No, as much as we like you, Jackie.
It's not that easy.
Open meeting law, I don't want to break those rules.
No.
So we'll ask the office to make the adjustments and then we'll sign the permit once it's corrected. Thank you.
Town administrators report?
Oh, Mr. Chair, we have an application from the Onset Bay Association, care of Eleanor Martin, for the use of Shell Point Beach for the fireworks.
Except that I'm not Eleanor Martin. Just want to clarify things a little bit. Although I've retired as president of the Onset Bay Association, I am still the chairperson, co-chairperson for the Onset Wareham Fireworks, along with Jackie Lindsay and Maria Leva. We have partnered with the Onset Bay Association, the Wareham Village Association, and the Cape Cod Region Chamber of Commerce as the group that has gotten together to raise the money to purchase the fireworks. So we're here tonight to requesting a permit to have the fireworks on July 2nd, which will be at dusk. We're also have gotten permission to have the rain date on July 9th, which is the following Saturday. And the reason for that was that the only date that was available with Atlas Fireworks was going to be the 5th, which is a Tuesday. Well, everyone will be back to work. So we thought, let's try and make the most of this and have it the following Saturday so that we can have a nice weekend. There's nothing else going on that weekend, and people can really enjoy them.
Yes, there is.
Oops, I'm sorry. What am I saying? Sorry.
There's always something going
There's
on in
always
Wareham
something
in the
going on.
summer.
Okay, also, we're going to be having a fundraising event on June 9th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Mezzaluna Restaurant located in Buzzards Bay. This event will include an auction, a 50-50 raffle, and gift raffles, and we're asking for a donation of $10. One of the reasons we opted for a fundraiser is the fact that we have only raised approximately half of what we need to purchase the fireworks this year. Things have been very slow. We do not have a sponsor, a major sponsor, and donations have been very slow in coming, and our coin jars have not been full as of yet, as they have in previous years. I think everyone has experienced a similar situation. So let me take this opportunity to advise folks and businesses that we need your financial support to make this event happen. And checks can be made out to the Town of Wareham Fireworks Fund, P.O. Box 799, Onset 02558. Any questions?
Just so the public understands, what is the total cost to put on?
Approximately $20,000.
It's very expensive. Yeah.
And again, this, as I said, is right now it's been very slow in coming, so we want to make sure we have enough money.
So you're needing to raise at least another $10,000.
Approximately that, yes.
Between now and July.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And, well, I think everyone in Wareham knows this is another big event that happens in Wareham. We get people coming from all over, and it'll be good if we all support this and do our best to make it work, not only this year, but every year, because it is a good attraction. And the two ladies you see up there, they're a team that you can't beat in getting things done for the town.
Thank you.
It's like
Thank
the
you very much.
dynamic duo. And any questions
Any
from anybody?
questions?
No. Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the permit for the Onset Bay Association, care of Mary Lou Payton, P.O. Box 799, Onset, Mass., for the use of the Shell Point Beach for onset fireworks, July 2nd, 2011, from 9 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., with a rain date of July 9th, 2011. It is understood and agreed that the town will be held harmless from all liability as to damage to property or injury to any person. No vehicles or equipment may remain on town property after conclusion of the event. Any vehicles or equipment remaining on site will be removed at the expense of the association. No alcoholic beverages may be sold, dispensed, or consumed on town property.
Motion made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 4-0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Good job.
Now I think we can go to town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To you and to the listening audience, if I could ask Dave Bichette to come up to describe expeditiously the street litter cleanup program. Dave?
Expeditiously.
Quick.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm here tonight to promote and provide some information about the upcoming Wareham Townwide cleanup event that is going to be taking place this Friday through Monday, which is May 13th through the 16th. This is largely a citizens-based effort aimed at cleaning up street litter along the Wareham roadways to improve the aesthetic look of the town's roads and to remove pollution from our environment. Street litter detracts from the aesthetic and scenic value of these areas where it accumulates, and citizens of the town have taken notice of this and decided to take action to bring attention to the issue and to clean it up. The effort is being spearheaded by concerned citizen / local activist Mary Bruce. Many of you may know her. She's a very energetic individual who has generated a great deal of enthusiasm in addressing this street litter issue. Mary and her volunteer team have worked hard to organize this effort on the citizen side of things and have gotten a great response. And I've been working with Mary to try to coordinate this effort from the town side of things. Since our initial discussions to have this event, there's been a great groundswell of support for this. There's a tremendous number of people who are interested in this, and there's actually close to 300 volunteers at this time that are signed up to help out with this event. Also, Mary and I have met with representatives from CMAS, and they're also very interested in Wareham's effort to undertake this project. And they have volunteered to provide reflector vests for anybody who wishes to have one during the cleanup, and also as many trash bags as we can use. They've also waived any dumpster tipping fees for any dumpsters that we generate as part of this project. So again, this coming Friday through Monday, citizens from all different parts of town are going to be taking to the streets to clean up street litter in their neighborhoods and any other debris that they might find along the roadways. Those participating in this effort can get rid of the collected trash free of charge at one of 2 drop-off locations during the event. One of the drop-off locations is the E.L. Morse Lumber Company at 2502 Cranberry Highway. And the other location is the Wareham Municipal Maintenance Department headquarters on Charge Pond Road. Dumpsters will be located at both locations, and there will be monitors at each location to assist folks with the drop-off process. Again, trash bags and reflective vests will be available at both drop-off locations. But when people are done, we do need to get the reflective vests back. So we have to give them back to CMAS. So one other note is we would not be taking hazardous waste as part of this cleanup. The drop-off hours for the 2 locations are from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Friday the 13th and Monday the 16th at both locations, and from noon to 3 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday at the municipal maintenance location, and from noon to 3 on Saturday at the Morse Lumber location. The Morse Lumber location would not be open on the Sunday. And there is a flyer that's out basically depicting all this information, and this flyer is posted on the town website as well as many local businesses and so forth. So I'd like to thank in advance Morse Lumber for volunteering their site as a drop-off location for this event. They also are volunteering their trucks for people who have collected trash and may not be able to transport it. If people do need to have some assistance in transporting this material, they can email a pickup request to warehamcleanup@comcast.net, and a truck would be dispatched out to that location. I'd also like to thank Mark Gifford of the Municipal Maintenance Department and Mark Andrews, who have been very supportive of this effort and for providing the municipal maintenance location for one of the drop-off sites. This is going to be a significant and positive event. The long-term goal, though, is not simply to have a one-year cleanup and then kind of forget about it till the next year. The goal is, beyond the initial cleanup, to keep the street sides clean by having interested people from different parts of town become street stewards, if you will, or almost as an adopt a road program type thing, so that the litter doesn't accumulate and become a problem once again. And also to raise awareness about, just generally the negative impacts of littering. This is a beneficial project, not only for aesthetic reasons, but it will also help with tourism and local businesses. Obviously, a cleaner environment is always better for any of these things. So looking forward to a very successful cleanup event. And again, I'd like to thank Mary Bruce for all her hard work and effort in putting this whole project together. And thank you all for having me be able to be here tonight to speak on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, David, very much.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
just
go
so
ahead.
the public knows, there is an event I created on Facebook called Wareham Cleanup. So if you search that term, you can respond to it if you're planning on attending or share it on your own page so that other people that may not be watching tonight can learn about it also. And Mrs. Bruce did an excellent job with the organizing of this.
Right, could you also repeat the phone number again, where they can get in touch with?
It's actually a website where you would just email your request. We don't actually have a phone line set up. So it is warehamcleanup@comcast.net.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a question. Thank you so much. And I did
Sure.
speak with Mary Bruce some weeks ago when this was kind of an idea, and she was going to different groups for volunteers. Huge number of students, from what I understand. Should someone come across anything that could be considered hazardous waste, do you have something set up for the citizens in the town that how they could approach the issue?
Well, we're hoping not to have that, but if that is the case, we really at this time don't have a way to handle certain types of hazardous waste. We just did have the Wareham Hazardous Waste Cleanup Day, and those types of items are not easily disposed of. But, you know, if we can, CMAS has offered to help in trying to get rid of some of this material, but we're trying to avoid taking that in. But obviously, if that's part of what people are cleaning up, then we'll have to try to address it. They did say they would take tires, which I was surprised at. So you usually find tons of those along the roadway. So.
Another question, there's certain areas in town that all of us can attest to that is town-owned land that seems to be an attraction for major dumping. I mean, you go by the forest, you see a couch. So is there going to be any kind of statistics compiled for this, or are we going to be able to monitor these sites? Because my fear is that the couches and TVs will be removed from those sites and then something else will replace it. So is there going to be any kind of statistical analysis on this or monitoring of these sites?
We are going to try to tabulate where this material is coming from so that we have some sense of it. These backwoods areas and areas where there's not a high level of population always tend to be the areas where debris ends up. It's difficult to prevent that completely. We do try to cordon off certain areas where there might be access that you wouldn't want to see in certain areas, but those areas will be monitored more frequently. And as I said, as part of this process, it isn't simply to be a one-time cleanup, but to try to create people who might be interested in a given area and kind of take ownership of that area to try to help out with the monitoring and maybe make the town or other parties aware of these problems when they arise. So, yes, we are going to try to do that in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, David, very much.
I'd just like to say, I'd like to thank you for coordinating this event, and I'd like to also thank the business owners who are participating. And I think that this is a great way to build community spirit, and I hope that a lot of people get out there and really help take pride in Wareham, and I'll certainly be there.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a major turnout. It's going to be a big event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, to move on, item number 2, I just want to give a report on the Director of Assessment. We have been very active. As you know, we reposted the position for the Directors of the Office of Assessors, and we have 9 applicants as of close of posting. We also met with Chairman Cruz and I met with the Board of Assessors to go over the processes by which we're moving forward with regards to filling this position. And the secondary position behind it. And we're also very fortunate to have Mr. Rich Gonzalez, who has been working with us, our former Director of Assessment, to help us guide us through this process and to work with all of the parties involved, including the revaluation team that is on site. And as we've been moving forward, I will keep the board posted on this process. I would respectfully request, Member Schneider has indicated to me his interest in serving on the review committee. And I will take your guidance on that, Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time. I intend to move forward with that review committee this week. Third item, if I could, Mr. Chairman, just for everybody's understanding, we have a new Harbor Master's office. It's going to take some time, but people are still coming to the basement of Town Hall. Please be advised that of May 2nd, the Harbor Master and his staff have relocated to the sunny, bright offices of room 23 in this building, the multi-service center. The move was precipitated by the former move of the Cedar office alongside the town administrator's office. And so the harbor master now has a new location, and I think he's on cloud 9 with the staff, that if you haven't seen it, you have to go and see his office, because it's quite the office. Fourth item, we've already heard from the folks on the triathlon, so I'll skip that, Mr. Chairman. On Saturday, April 30th, I was proud to participate in the Boys and Girls Club Comcast Cares Day. We had 42 volunteers that completely painted the interior of the Boys and Girls Club, did some landscaping, participated in a very important process. We also had the passes of Heaven's Gate, who was a local contractor, supervising work to create a study room, which is basically a garage to be turned into a very valuable asset, I think, alongside the school district, and hopefully plays an important role going forward. I want to thank Barbara Sullivan for letting me say a few words at the beginning of this event, and I keep the board posted. Barbara's a whirlwind. Right now, we're working on summer youth jobs with the Regional Workforce Investment Board to try to come up with the requisite number of jobs, given the fact that there's been a number of federal and state cutbacks. Item B, if I could point your attention to, it's very long, but it was scanned and sent to the members of the board. Chief Stanley is tirelessly working on our accreditation as a police department, and he has provided us with a new listing of departmental policies and procedures. And I would ask that the board review this and provide any feedback to myself or the chief going forward. Item C, we all attended, let's see, I think Mike was tied up that day, but we attended the grand opening of Lindt Chocolate Factory at Wareham Crossing. Just a real quick update. Talking with Karen Carlson, who's the regional director, who handles, by the way, the entire eastern seaboard for Lindt Chocolate. If you haven't tried a Lindt Chocolate, you probably have to. I was, I think, fortunate enough to follow in Chairman Cruz's steps to purchase enough candy for the office, so that was a hit. They let me back in at least, and we did have a very interesting discussion that Wareham Crossing is looked upon as one of the most prestigious locations on the eastern seaboard, as a major marketing and growth-oriented area, and that's the reason why Lindt Chocolate decided to come to our town, and I think that's important to pass that along, Mr. Chairman. Item D, you have a invitation to the Barnstable County Public Works Association, Plymouth County Highway Association, and the South Shore Recycling Cooperative. Cordially invites the Board of Selectmen to their May 20th legislative breakfast. This is courtesy of Mr. Mark Gifford. It's at the Radisson Hotel in Plymouth at 9 o'clock, and I think he just needs to know who's going to attend. So if they can just return the invitations to me, and I'll make the arrangements. Mr. Chairman, if I could move on to, I have a very short PowerPoint and some handouts, Derek. The flash peg is in. Alan, can you get the lights, please? Mr. Chairman, fiscal 2012 budget has been an odyssey for many cities and towns. And that being said, I'm very happy to let you know that as I was on the phone this afternoon with Senator Mark Pacheco, the Senate resolution identified in the House budget the local aid estimates that the House has come up with, the state Senate is adopting for their own estimates. So that locks in our local aid. That's one large part of the equation. And I wanted to let the board know that that is not only appreciated, but it shows that our legislative leaders, Senator Mark Pacheco and Representative Susan Williams Gifford, are listening and paying attention to the areas that they represent. Derek? The fiscal 2012 budget's balanced, and that's probably the best starting point I can come out to tell you about tonight, because it is balanced. We have made some modifications to the budget as would be needed from December till now. It's also based on the Budget Review Committee that had representatives from the Board of Selectmen, from the Finance Committee, and also from the School Committee. And you can see the split, the ratio of commitment that we had to bridge a $2,857,000 $576 gap. And that gap wasn't easy to bridge. You have had in your possession a number of the ways that we've gone about doing that. That process, by the way, has been reviewed by our town auditors of Powers and Sullivan, and they have watched that very carefully going into this final stretch, if you will, on the town budget. The third area I want to point out is that we were very conservative in budgeting our local revenue, that we took it down 2% below of what we projected it to be. So with that being said, we're very much working on a conservative approach to budget as it relates to local revenues and how they'll be counted going forward into fiscal 2012. And the fourth area I want to point out is that we asked all departments to take a 5% non-personnel expense cut. Where we could cut in areas of the budget, we did not cut debt service, we did not cut snow and ice, we didn't cut legal fees, because those are items that you need to have as ongoing costs, but we did ask departments to cut an additional 5% of their budgets. Derek? Some of the highlights. We've challenged the leadership team to be better at working strategically and cooperatively together, and that's what we're working towards in terms of item number one. The second item, and I think this is an important one as well, that we have no staff layoffs or reduction in time and hours at this juncture of the budget, and that's an important feature because we've been cutting a lot in recent years, and I think it's important to make certain that we have our complement of departmental staff on board with us. The third area I wanted to announce tonight that I'm proud to say that the lifeguard program is also a major focus of the budget. It's also a major focus of Safe Summer 2011, and it's also going to be put under the Harbor Master's jurisdiction going forward into this next fiscal year. It's a natural for it to progress in that direction. He's on the waterways, and he can help us get the program managed. Derek? So where do we stand in terms of continued highlights? Well, we know Powers and Sullivan, our outside independent auditors, continue to assist us in gaining fiscal stability, and that we have a fiscal recovery plan in the town accountant's office that has put us back on track. We've continued to fund stabilization. I know since I've been here, we've put at least $100,000 aside for a rainy day. I think that's the least that we can do. And now we're going to put $150,000 aside to build that fund back up for a rainy day. We've been very fortunate to work with a number of individuals who have worked very hard to get student interns in town governance. And Alan Slavin's one of the fellows that has helped us with that, as well as a number of other people who have worked with us to make sure that we can get practical experience for people who want to enter public service and do it in a way that makes the most sense. We've also upgraded, as you know, our financial management information system, and we're working with VEDA. Mr. Chairman, I just want to point this out. We already had one meeting. We intend to have a series of meetings with departments to be able to make sure that their staffs have the right professional development at the right juncture in managing their local resources, and that's a commitment that's in this budget. Once again, I mentioned that we have put 1.5 times what we put in last year into stabilization. And I believe when all said is done at the end of fiscal 2011, that we will maintain a positive free cash balance, although that no free cash is being used in this budget document. So we've gone forward with resources that have come from the state in terms of local aid or resources that we've grown locally, and we've not used anything else other than what we have had in those two parts of the equation. Our pension costs are down by $144,000 plus dollars. And that helps us in managing our resources with regards to the pension system itself. Derek? Some priorities to stay on track and on theme. Public safety is still a key and will remain a key. We've had a state inspection where 2 of our ambulances were disabled due to some inspectional issues. And I have back in December, and I'm saying now, that we need at least 1 ambulance going forward. Estimated at cost fully equipped at $204,000. And I'm saying that our replacement program for our cruisers has to be maintained, in my opinion, for a starting point of another $50,000 to keep the recycling of cruises so that we can keep the vehicles coming through and building upon the gains that we've made in the recent years. With respect to improvements at our water treatment and pump stations, I want to thank Mr. Campina and Mr. Gifford for identifying areas of electrical upgrades, plant improvements. Some of the ventilation systems needed to be upgraded, and that's an estimated cost of $100,000. But discount that with something new called, it's an energy savings program where we actually brown ourselves out for periods where we don't need the electricity, and we're going to save ourselves an estimated $14,000 in savings this year coming forward. Derek? So just to kind of give you, this is the standard Wareham dollar. You have to indulge me a little bit here. But where does the money come from? 25% of our dollars come from the green signals, that's obviously dollars, cash, from state aid. 54% comes from our local tax levy. 10% comes from our enterprise fund, the water treatment facility. And another 10% comes from local receipts, including meals, motel, and hotel, which we've moved off and got off the ground with the certification of the vote at town meeting. Department of Revenue has advised us that we're going to be receiving funds this fiscal year in fiscal 2012. And other financing sources, including fees that come from the cemetery, harbor master, and parking fees at 1%. Where do we spend our dollar? We spend our dollar on 9% for public safety, which includes the police department and other safety areas. 6% come from cherry sheet net offsets, which are listed below, county and state assessments, snow and ice, assessors overlay. And the biggest and the lion's share of our dollars go to our educational district, our school district, at 46%. 4% goes to the Upper Cape Vocational Technical School. And another 10%, once again, it's a wash, 10% in, 10% out on the enterprise fund. And 14% for employee benefits, including health and pension costs and insurances. And 2% for municipal maintenance. 6% for the rest of general government that makes up the equation. So you can see clearly, and 1% for debt service, clearly that we're not flush on a lot of positions and parts of the budget, but we have gone through painstaking steps to make sure that you can clearly see where the money comes from and where it goes. And with that, I'd like to wrap up my presentation, Mr. Chairman, and ask if there are any questions. Derek, if you could. And we also have a up-to-date current worksheet, by the way, that Derek's going to hand out. I'm not looking for a vote tonight, Mr. Chairman, but I would appreciate if members would review this document, get back with me with any questions. It's in a format that I think you will enjoy. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. It's an expanded spreadsheet that you can see clearly where we've been, where we're going, and what the percentage variance is between fiscal years.
Mr. Chair? Yes. Through you to the town administrator, when will we be making available to the public the budget in the format as required by charter for town meeting? Because I believe that we're due to do that right about now.
This format, if I could, through you, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
complies with, I believe, Section 5.5 of the charter, and this will be posted, and it will also be printed up and inserted into warrants for town meeting, and also made available around town.
Will it be published?
Yes.
In the newspaper, so
Yes.
people, okay.
Yep.
And also, and this may not be the appropriate time to ask this question, but the free cash. Last Thursday, when we met with Powers and Sullivan, Mr. Powers, was it, explained that the free cash number had been 2.4 million, and the DOR had held back the 700,000, resulting in the 1.7 something million in free cash, because they recognized that there was a cash issue. The free cash numbers, or the last spreadsheet that we had, did not seem to adjust that free cash number down by the additional $219,000, which was the final number in the audit, the 919,000. Has that been done? Do we have an updated spreadsheet?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, on advice of Mr. Powers, I'm going to let fiscal 2011 close and get our free cash number at that point in time. That's the most economical way to get to the truest number on free cash. There's no free cash built into the fiscal 2012 budget, so we're not relying on any part of it. It's going to be an exercise in closing down the books for the last quarter of the fiscal year and winding up with a free cash position in time on June 30th. And I'll be working with the auditors along those lines.
Well, I understand that, but later on in the agenda, when we go through the articles, we're going to be looking to spend down that free cash number, correct?
The money articles that are coming before you relate to anything that's in the budget as of this time, so that there's no free cash being used from the articles that have been rewritten, or we're going to postpone some of them until we can get that free cash position on June 30th. Through you, Mr. Chairman.
So are you, let me phrase the question differently. When we get to the special town meeting portion of this, and we talk about Article 4, to transfer from free cash the $720,000, we don't have a sheet. Remember, we had a sheet and it said our free cash was this, and then we spent X at fall town meeting, and now we have this left, and here's our deficits. But where's the additional 219,000 in that calculation is what I'm asking. We can't ignore that piece of it, right?
I'm not sure I'm not quite understanding the question, Mr. Chairman. The Article 4 can be done on the recap sheet, and we're going to indefinitely suspend it as of this time.
Okay, so there's not
it
going to be
relates
any
to-
activity on Article 4.
That's correct.
Okay, well,
That's
then I
correct.
guess my point is
Yeah.
not.
But I think it's my original point. I'm following a very conservative guidepost as it relates to free cash.
Mr. Andrews, I'm not questioning that. My question was simply that this is it's saying here that this is what we're going to vote on tonight, and I wanted to make sure that I understood the status of the free cash and what the actual free cash balance was, and that the public understood it, because there's a lot of confusion out there about some of the things that Mr. Powers said on Thursday night in terms of these numbers. So, but if we're not going to vote on it, then the point is kind of moot.
It is, and if you can see my explanation that's written in the box, if you have the most recent version.
That's what I'm looking at.
Says the town administrator has recommended pulling this article on item 4.
That's not what it says on my copy.
Well,
Mr. Chair, through you, on Article 4, I think it's page 3. The motion is I move to indefinitely postpone action on this article.
Maybe I have the wrong one.
This is
Ellen.
on the special town meeting.
Okay.
so if I could just give an explanation, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Please.
Certainly. Snow and ice, legal settlements can be done on the recap sheet in the fall. That's when our certification of free cash happens. That's when our independent audit will be completed. And that's why we're saying that this item's being pulled at this particular time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
I just have one question, Mr. Chairman, through you to the town administrator. I'm just curious what the status is. I know that there's been some discussion in the past about an agreement with the school department or a memorandum of understanding. Where does that stand at this point?
Mr. Chairman, through you, there have been ongoing discussions through the Budget Review Committee, and the gentleman's question is very well taken. I have recommended and have been affirmed through our outside independent auditors that there's always one in the crowd, right? that the agreement be put to writing. It's been drafted. I intend to get it to the superintendent and the school committee. That has always been the premise from the beginning. I just want to state that for the record, that any use of, and by the way, under the aegis and jurisdiction of our independent auditors, this process has unfolded with regards to the healthcare holiday, the premium holiday, which is a one-time bridge between fiscal 2011 and 2012. It will clearly state that. and the process will unfold. We'll have a written document that everybody understands what their expectations are and what their responsibilities are.
Okay, so, Mr. Town Administrator, it will be an agreement versus a memorandum of understanding? Is
That's
that-
correct.
Okay.
Yes. And that, through you, Mr. Chairman, that has always been, I know Member Winslow was on the review committee and other members that may not be here tonight, but the idea was to have a specified agreement in writing so that all the two parties would understand exactly what had transpired, and that it was a one-time bridge between fiscal 2011 and fiscal 2012. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You don't have anything else? We go into town business?
All set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Next on the agenda, we have Chapter 61A for Rosebrook Way.
Thank you, Ms. Winslow, and members of the board. My name is Rich Serkey. I'm local counsel for the AD Makepeace Company. And before you tonight on your agenda is a request to waive the option to purchase for Rosebrook Place. Rosebrook Place is the proposed commercial and residential development that's actually coming before the Special Permit Granting Authority tomorrow night at the location of Rosebrook Way, Cranberry Highway, and Route 195 to house a proposed conference center and hotel, family restaurant, and associated commercial and residential uses. The land, in part, is currently assessed under Chapter 61A. And as you well know, land that's assessed under Chapter 61A is taxed at a substantially lower rate than is land used for commercial purposes. And in order to facilitate the proposed development of this property, the AD Makepeace Company is asking that the lower tax rate of Chapter 61A be terminated in order to unify the use and therefore the taxable status of the lot of which they are a part. The parcels in question contain 1.280 acres and 3.780 acres respectively, and they're shown on a map that was supplied with the Chapter 61A notice that was dated April 21, 2011, and sent as required by certified mail to the Selectmen, the Assessors, the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, and the Massachusetts State Forester. And I have a proposed declination with me if in fact the board is of a mind to vote it. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for, and I'm going to let the board members, but just to orient us, I just want to make sure I'm correct. On the left-hand side of the map, this is Route 28, and then the large piece of proposed removal of 61A, that's along what's now known as Rosebrook Way, right?
That's
the
correct.
entrance? Okay.
The curvilinear line to the right on your map is Rosebrook Way.
Thank you.
And the road that is at the bottom of your map is Cranberry Highway.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Attorney Serkey?
I'm not sure if you can answer this question, Attorney Serkey.
Yeah.
Have you spoken with the town assessor? Can you tell us what the difference in the revenue for that portion of land is on a yearly basis?
I don't know. I don't know that.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I haven't opined that. I do know that a favorable vote will result in full and fair cash market value rather than the arithmetically reduced number that Chapter 61A and Chapter 61B and Chapter 61 all produce.
Right. No, I understand that, and I appreciate those comments. And just whether or not this is subject to the rollback provision of 61.
Absolutely. And what happens is, as we've done this before with respect to other parcels, if the Board of Selectmen declines the waiver, the next thing I do is to contact the Board of Assessors They compute the rollback, we pay it, and then they issue a partial release. And it's Barbara LaFavor in the assessor's office, who's my go-to person there.
Thank you.
Mrs. Begley, do you have any questions? Mr. Chair.
Questions at this time?
Madam Chair, if I might?
No, Mr. Chair's
Oh,
back.
Mr. Chairman's back,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, Mr. Andrews, go ahead.
I just want to say, Madam Chairman, if I could just also point out that this is a key link in the development of Rosebud Place that we're all very excited about, that will bring hundreds of new jobs, tremendous commercial development, and help us with in a number of areas. Am I correct, Attorney?
You're absolutely correct.
Thank you very much.
You stole my thunder.
Anything else? Yes. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the request of the AD Makepeace Company for a waiver. You didn't actually write the motion out for us, did you?
Well, I can read it for you.
Well, do you have it in writing so I can read it?
I will write it for you right now.
Okay. He's going to write it for us right now.
Would you like me to read it as I write it?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll just repeat after you.
I think I heard Ms. Winslow move that the board, the board has voted to decline to exercise the option to purchase the subject properties.
That's what it
And have
is.
accordingly voted that the right will not be exercised and is hereby waived.
I hope you
Mr.
can
Chair.
remember all that.
I make a motion for the Board of Selectmen to decline the purchase of the subject land in the April 25th, 2011 letter from AD Makepeace Company. And what's the second half? To decline
And therefore not, and to waive the town's option to purchase.
and to waive the town's option to
I
purchase.
think the letter was dated April 21. It may have been received April 25.
It's dated April 25th.
25th?
Yes. Just so for the record, if anybody goes back, usually when you give us these things, you have everything in here for us.
Motion made.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Sorry about that. I apologize to the viewing
0,
audience
0.
too. Yeah. Mr. Chair, Mr. Judici has arrived. I don't know, do you want to go back on the agenda to the discussion with Camp Dresser and McKee?
No, come on. CPC needs to get out of here.
Yeah. Okay, now the FY 2012, we're all set with that. Discussion with sponsors of article for the annual special town meeting. With any other, I don't see theirs on it.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I asked our town council to join us this evening, as we had other town business early this evening, and to also help us walk through both the special and the annual. And proponents are here. We'll get through this as expeditiously as we can. Rich?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Administrator, I've been working with the moderator, with the administrator, to try to punch up the motions so that we can get them in shape for you for town meeting. And with your permission, what I'll do is I'll start with the special town meeting and just go through these quickly so that you have a sense of where we are, and if you see the need for further revisions, we can get your input in and try to get these finalized well in advance of the meeting. With respect, on the special town meeting with respect to Article 1, in the warrant, there's a fairly large chart of transfers that identify the originating account and the recipient account. We've chosen to draft up a motion that simply reads, I move that the town vote to adjust the budget as printed in the warrant. Seems to be the accurate approach to handling it. I'm sure you're acquainted with the reasons for the transfers. They're just mid-year adjustments to make sure that every account is properly funded by the end of the year. With respect to Article 2, this is calls for the funding of a collective bargaining agreement. The motion, as it currently stands, is I move that the town vote to transfer $51,500 from the amount encumbered by Article 30 of the fall town meeting in order to fund the collective bargaining agreement between the town and IAFF Local 2895 Wareham EMT Association. The administration and the local have reached an agreement in principle, and under Chapter 150E, the final step in that process would be to put the appropriation to town meeting. Back in the fall, you set aside an amount of money in Article 30 to provide for settlement of, or funding of collective bargaining agreements, and that's what this would accomplish. With respect to Article 3, oh, I'm sorry.
While we're going down, if it's all right with the board, you want to vote on them as we go down?
That sounds good.
I'm sorry if I was turned into a runaway freight
That's
train.
okay.
No, go ahead.
Just to clarify, Mr. Holmes, who is the clerk, makes a motion for favorable action, just to be consistent, just so everybody's on the same page. So on Article 1, I move favorable action.
Second.
Made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
400.
Article 2 was previously voted. So, Attorney Bowen, Article 3.
Yes, ma'am. Article 3 calls for the transfer of $152,000 to fund a contract with Vision Appraisal, the company that is doing a revaluation and recertification of properties in town. At the moment, we don't have a motion drafted on that one because we're further examining the suitability of the funding source, trying to determine whether it would be best to come from sale of land proceeds or from another funding source. There's a little bit of flexibility, and so that one's on the corner of the table until the administration decides what the best funding source would be on that one. On Article 4,
Attorney Bowen.
oh, yes, ma'am.
So is Article 3 being postponed?
No, ma'am, I don't believe so. I think it's just we're at the point where we don't have a motion finalized such that we could present it to you for your vote.
I must have a bad copy.
Oh, you,
I have a motion.
oh, let's have
I too. I have a motion on mine too.
Oh, yes, I know that motion.
Is that the correct motion?
To be honest with you, ma'am, I don't like that motion, and I've asked administration to take another look at it. You're
Okay.
absolutely right. You do have a motion in front of you. I don't believe it's a motion that I'm going to recommend that you go with, and so I just ask that it be tabled for the moment until we can sharpen our pencils on the funding source. So-
Okay. So should we vote on the merit of the article, Mr. Chair? Or just,
No, I think we just,
okay.
we have a motion to hold or for further study.
Well, I'm going to make the motion for favorable action, and then we just all vote abstain from it, right?
I don't think we need to vote at all on it.
Okay.
May I
Yes.
may I ask a question through you, Mr. Chairman, to Attorney Bowen? Could we modify the motion that's here simply to state, transfer the funds from, available sources?
Far be it from me to tell the board what it can and can't do. I mean, I guess as long as it's legal. And even if it's illegal, you may do it anyway, even if I told you it was a bad idea. But, I'm sorry, that's just, I'm joking there.
So,
But, I'm sorry, all I'm
That's okay.
suggesting is that the motion that I think you'll see at town meeting will be different from the motion that you've
Okay.
actually got in front of you.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you.
should we just table this?
Yes, it sounds like it. Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Motion made.
second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? 400.
Article 4 was indefinitely postponed.
Yes, ma'am.
Article 5 was previously voted.
Yes, ma'am. Then on Article 6, this is a CPC-related item. Just for the sake of the speed of town meeting, we had suggested a motion of, I move as printed in the warrant, which I think would be easier on everybody. I certainly would defer to Ms. Miller and the CPC as to whether that motion would be accepted.
Hi. What? Yes. Is that what you agreed to?
Yes, so we're returning the $10,000 to the,
Yes.
But that motion looks good to you. I'll
Go ahead, Sandy, I'm talking.
the article is just to return unused funds into the CPC unallocated fund balance. These projects have all been completed and verified by the proponents of those projects, so we're returning them to use them again for another project.
Mr. Chair, I move favorable action. Article
made.
6.
Motion made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 400.
That's you. Yeah.
Article 7 is a pretty similar, it's just the,
Article 7 is to set aside the $50,000 for each one of the three reserves out of the FY11 estimated annual revenue. And I've confirmed that before our accountant left that that CPC had $150,000 in the estimated annual revenue in FY11 to handle this article. Yeah. Sorry.
I make a motion for favorable action on Article 7.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 400.
And then, Mr. Chairman, we're back to a group of collective bargaining articles, and since we now have the lottery system, I think what we were going to suggest, and this is actually the moderator's suggestion, I wish I had thought of it, is that we will ask to link Articles 8 through 13 together, so whichever one gets pulled out of the, I don't know what you call it, the drum, the basket, these will all be taken up as one. And the motion that would be applied to the whole group would be not what's currently printed in the copies that you have, but something along these lines. I move to indefinitely postpone action on Articles 8 through 13, and that way we can just take care of them all in one fell swoop.
But we don't have to take a vote on those tonight.
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
And that completes the special town meeting warrant. And then, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, on the annual, I'll start off with Article 5, if I may. I move that the town vote to fix the salary and compensation of the following elected officers, town clerk and town moderator, and any other elected officers as provided by Chapter 41, Section 108 of the general laws as amended, and to raise and appropriate a sum of money therefore, or to do or act in any manner relative thereto. And I have to say, as I'm looking at this, and I don't know that, I don't recall what our practice has been in the past, but The motion doesn't actually establish any salaries, and it doesn't appear to appropriate a specific sum. So I'm just peeking in our warrant to see if we have it listed there. I assume that the appropriation probably just comes about as a result of action on the overall budget, so that's not the issue. Perhaps,
Attorney Bowen?
Yes,
If
ma'am.
I can just interrupt you. Mr. Andrews, did you budget an increase for those positions in the FY12 budget? So we would include those numbers in the motion, in the article, correct? So people knew what they were voting on?
that's what I was thinking that perhaps we ought to do. And I don't think we've done that in the past, but I think that's something that we should do, so that it would be, I move to fix the following officers. We identify the officers, we give the dollar amount, and then that way, as a matter of record, it's voted at, X amount. So I think we need to revisit that one with your permission.
So want to hold off on that for now?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, we
Madam-
already voted on this.
Go ahead, Mrs. Bagley.
Oh.
We
even-
already voted, the selectmen already voted on this particular article.
So then the only thing we need to do is just rewrite the motion, and that's it.
Yes, sir. We'll bring you back a motion that actually
Okay.
has those titles and dollar numbers in it. And again, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, Article 6, this is the, and according to the notes at the bottom, it doesn't look like the board has acted on this one yet. This would be the omnibus budget vote. We need to perfect this motion because when we go through I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds. I think we want to plug in the actual dollar amounts that are coming from taxation, the raise and appropriate amount, and then we want to specify the available funds and the amounts from which the monies are being taken. So I don't think that this motion is yet ripe, although I suspect it will be very soon, once we can plug in the dollar amounts and then the funding sources.
Just hold that for now.
Do you want to just hold on that one? We just got a copy of the budget, so I don't really feel comfortable voting on that article right now. We haven't had a chance to look at it since we just got it 10 minutes ago.
So we put a hold on that one?
Yep.
Number 6, hold.
And then, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, Article 7, which I don't believe you've acted on, the motion on that, again, this appears to be an annual article. I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate $2,375,173 as its share of the operating and capital costs of the Upper Cape Regional Vocational Technical High School District for fiscal year July 1 through June 30. Standard article.
Mr. Chair, I move favorable action on Article 7.
Motion made.
Second. Second.
Second. Motion made, second.
Sorry.
No. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 4-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, over on Article 8, I don't believe you've acted on this one yet. The motion that I'd like to change the motion that is printed in the document that you have. I believe the ultimate motion will probably read more like this. I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate $150,000 for the stabilization fund. I'd recommend that you perhaps just set this one aside until you can be sure that taxation is the appropriate source for those funds, but I estimate that that's probably where you will take it from.
So do we want to hold that one?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 4-0-0 to hold.
And, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, Article 9, the motion is as printed in your document. I move to appropriate $6,230,399 from the Water Pollution Control Enterprise Fund, salary and wages, $711,913, expenditures including debt, $5,518,486 in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 53 F and a half of the general laws to defray the operating and capital expenses of the Water Pollution Control Enterprise Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1 and ending on July 30th.
I move favorable action on Article 9.
Motion made.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
400.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we're not actually voting on the motions, Attorney Bowen, just so you're aware.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
just the articles itself. If there needs to be things tweaked in the motions, then that might save us a little bit of time too, because
I'd be happy not to read the motions to you. Perhaps only when I see something that is going to be changed, if
yeah,
that's okay.
that might be a little odd. Okay, I withdraw that.
Well, I don't. Article 10, Mr. Chairman, looks, from a motion point of view, good to go.
I move favorable action on Article 10.
Motion made. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 400.
And perhaps just apropos to Ms. Winslow's comment, if anyone sees anything that needs tweaking on the motions, please let me know. More eyes make for a better result. Article 11, the motion is as printed in your document.
I move favorable action on Article 11.
Article 11. Motion made.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
400.
Mr. Chairman, on Article 12, just a slight tweak to the motion. If you drop down to the third line of the motion, which has the words fund and then general laws, Chapter 44, Section 53 and a half, I recommend just putting a period after the word fund, and then we can cross out the rest of that line. That's all I had on that one.
I move favorable action on Article 12.
Article 12. Motion made.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 400.
Mr. Chairman, Articles 13 and 14 are revolving funds proposed by the school department. The school department is going to be providing a motion. We've been discussing generally the question of the 1% restriction, because as originally proposed, the articles would have been up in the neighborhood of 2%. So it's my understanding that the school department is looking at the 1% rule and figuring out what to do there.
But these are in general just housekeeping articles. I mean, they will, by the time town meeting comes, you guys will have that 1% piece straightened out, right?
Well, like the song says, "Don't shoot me, I'm just the piano player." The Department of Revenue certainly would not be very happy if articles went through putting 2% of the tax levy in the hands of one department. That clearly the law doesn't allow that. So I certainly hope it will be worked out.
Well, maybe we should just hold off on those articles.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, now what were the numbers again? 13?
13 and 14.
13 and
Yes,
14.
We can always vote these articles right before town meeting, so.
Mr. Chairman, Article 15, the motion looks ready to go.
You know, Mr. Chair, isn't this the issue that Mr. Slavin brought to us earlier about the parking? Is this the same?
No, this,
Different, two different
Mr.
funds?
Chairman,
Okay.
this is different. Yeah.
I move favorable action on Article 15.
Motion made.
Second.
Motion seconded. Mike? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 400.
Mr. Chairman, on Article 16, I'm looking at a modest revision to the motion. I think what it will say is, I move that the town vote to appropriate from receipts reserved for appropriation $57,600. I just want to make the item a little clearer on this, but you know, I think it's otherwise ready for you.
I move favorable action on Article 16.
Motion made on 16.
I think it's your turn to second, Mike.
Actually, I'll second, just quick discussion
Okay.
on this item.
Motion second for discussion.
I'd like a little bit of clarification on exactly what this item is, through you,
Surely.
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Andrews.
Surely. Mr. Chairman, through you to the board, these are two areas of need that I identified with the relative department heads. One being the tax title fees. I believe that the town has to pay the fees, that the attorneys that we have on hire from D'Ambrosio cannot pay for the fees associated with this, which amount to $32,600. And that's one part of it. The second item pertains to inspectional services, getting out and being very strident in their work to get condemned properties demolished, to basically give them a running start at getting that process done. In some of these buildings, the town has under its control, if you get my meaning.
Okay.
Okay? So we would like to move this forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion?
No, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 4-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, on Article 17, I'm going to be adding just a few words to the motion that's printed. I'll just add in to offset some of the cost of the Conservation Administrator's salary. But other than that, this is ready.
I move favorable action for Article 17.
Motion made.
Second?
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed? 4-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, Article 23 is ready.
I move favorable action on Article 23.
Motion made on 23.
Second?
Motion second and made. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 4-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, on Article 24, I'll be doing a little bit of editorial license with the motion, but I'd say this one is ready
Is
to go.
good. I move favorable action on Article 24.
Motion on 24.
Second?
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? 4-0-0.
And Mr. Chairman, on Article 25, on the motion that's printed in the document that you have, I'll just be deleting the last sentence, which contains a recommendation, which I don't think would be part of the motion. But other than that, it's ready for your action.
I move favorable action on Article 25.
Motion on 25. All in favor? I mean, second?
Second?
Second. Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, on Article 26, I'm still working with the motion on this one to pin down the funding source precisely on it. As you can see from the motion that you have in front of you, it just references available funds, and I think we need to clarify that a little bit better.
So we
before
should hold off on this one for now.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody in agreement on that?
Yeah.
So we'll hold Article 26.
Hold on 26.
Article 27,
Drawn, isn't it?
it's an indefinite postponement, so barring any objection, we'll just move on to 28.
Mr. Chairman, also, if I could just add, this has been added to the capital plan for the town. Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, on Article 28, I'm still working on the motion on that one. Again, I just want the motion to pin down the funding source a little more precisely so that it's entered in the records properly.
So should we hold off on that one too till we've identified the correct funding?
Yes,
Hold on that.
that was 28.
29. Didn't we already do this? Oh, okay, so with the 29's withdrawn. 30?
Mr. Chairman, on this one, the revision that I'm suggesting in the motion is that we actually include the dollar amount that would be transferred, and that amount is, I believe, going to be $4,260. So it will read, I move that the town, town vote to transfer $4,260 from the fund to the town clerk's budget.
I move favorable action for Article 30.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
400.
And then, Mr. Chairman, Articles 31 and 32, Nan and Sandy still are there? Of course, defer to their expertise, although the motions appear to be in order.
This is the annual article that we get for their administrative expenses. Okay. I move favorable action, Article 31.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 400.
Article 32 is being withdrawn by the CPC. Is that correct, Mrs. Slavin?
Yes.
Okay. Article 32 will be withdrawn.
Then, Mr. Chairman, on Article 33, I'd like to have the opportunity to work with the CPC a little bit on the motion on this one, because I think it would be good for us to identify the specific funds and the amounts being taken from each such fund so that we properly get those in the motion.
Any objections to holding that article? Mr. Cruz, is that good? Mr. Chair? Hold.
Okay, hold.
The funding is available and coming from the affordable housing reserve for this article, the 50,000.
Ah, okay. With your permission, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
My only reservation was that the article said to see if the town will vote to appropriate from the Community Preservation Affordable Housing Reserve Fund or any other monies available in the Community Preservation Fund.
The motion will specifically say affordable housing reserve.
Great. We can get that in.
Yes.
Thanks.
So, Mr. Bowen, so noted?
50,000 from the reserve. Yes, sir.
I move favorable action on Article 33. No?
Can I just make a point?
Yes.
We were asked to have the proponents of the articles here so that the selectmen could ask any questions or whatever, so we've got everyone here. If you would like to speak with them.
Do you want us to ask you a question?
Yeah.
Not me.
Sure.
The good news is we haven't had any questions yet because there's so...
I appreciate that, I really do.
So that means you've done a well job. Well done.
Okay.
Well,
Okay,
they're
bring them,
there,
which,
so...
which group was, which one was that?
South Shore.
33. We had a motion on that?
I made a motion for favorable action. We were going to hold it, and then there was discussion. So I made a motion. If somebody wants to second it for discussion, we've got the...
I'll second for discussion.
Second for discussion. Go ahead, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening, board and chairman. My name is Andre White, and I represent the Community Builders, the new partner that just acquired Depot Crossing with South Shore Housing, and with Hall Keen as our property management company. Depot Crossing is the renovation of 32 affordable housing units for families earning less than 30% of the area median income. The Community Builders and South Shore Housing has partnered to do a full-fledged renovation of the property. We'll be modifying kitchens, baths, exterior renovations, landscaping, new playgrounds, upgrading all the pavement, and just making a full-scale and wide-range improvement to the property using primarily the state LIHTC, which is low-income housing tax credit financing, and also the Neighborhood Stabilization 2 funds, which is a function of HUD's economic stimulus plan. So we expect renovations to start in early July, and they will commence towards the end of this year.
Hi, Mr. White. The renovations that you described, is it considered a substantial rehabilitation under the guidelines?
Yes.
So these are matching funds?
Well, DHCD has asked the town to make some sort of contribution, and CPC said they could give $50,000 towards the effort.
Okay. And is there going to be an extension of the affordability?
Yes, sir. Per the provisions of just the LIHTC tax credit program in general, it's a 50-year affordability period on there.
50-year affordability period? Wow. Okay. And the relationship between community builders and Hall Keene, and can you?
So South Shore Housing was the owner prior to the acquisition on April 26.
Okay.
And the new entity that's been formed, the community builders and South Shore Housing are partners. Hall Keene is our third-party property management for the property. And just for reference, Community Builder is one of the nation's largest nonprofit affordable housing developers, and we're based out of Boston, Chicago, and Washington.
Thank you. And during the renovations, will the families be occupying the units, or will they be relocated?
We have a strategy to Depot Crossing. There's 8 buildings there, so we're going to completely temporarily relocate families to different units on site, and also to Cranberry Manor, which is another South Shore Housing owned property in town. And we project that interior renovations per each building will take approximately 2 weeks. So some families will be temporarily relocated for a period of 4 to 6 months, and other families will be temporarily relocated for approximately 2 weeks.
Mr. Chair, would it be possible for us to get the 2 new selectmen a copy of that big letter outlining this project to the new selectmen? Because they wouldn't have seen.
Okay, was it on the internet? I think it was on the internet, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think when we got it back a couple months ago, they wouldn't have been here. So just so they can, so they know what's going on. It is a big project, and you guys did do a good job of laying out the whole thing. So just as he's talking, I'm just thinking that might be nice.
If you
for
can
them to have.
resend it to us just in case, and we'll put a note down for the clerks to mail it out.
And who do I send it to?
Just email it to bos@wareham.ma.us. Doesn't matter if we all get it all over again. I just wanted to make sure you had it.
What is that?
At wareham.ma.us.
I guess I just have one last question in relation to the project through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
The relocation costs all will be borne by the owner for the residents?
Yeah.
All of the relocation costs?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Motion made and second. Any other discussion?
No, sir.
Good questions.
Okay. Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 400.
Mr. Chairman, I think that puts us at Article 34. It's my understanding that the CPC has a motion where $50,000 will be taken from the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund, so I think that's probably ready.
Yes.
I move favorable action on Article 34.
Motion made.
Second for discussion?
Motion second for discussion.
This particular article has to do with Agawam Village. We have awarded $50,000 for a renovation project there, and CPC has chosen specifically to fund exterior doors. So Pam can tell you that they're getting different funding sources. Our part of the project will be exterior doors.
Good evening. We have gotten funds from our CIP, it's getting late, for formula funding. We're going to do the envelopes of each building with CBG money of 85,000 and the 50,000 from CPA, and then DHCD formula funding. And we'll be doing one building at a time, which will be starting with building 1. And it'll be the envelope of the units, and then we will be going towards our formula funding for the next 3 years, and we will be coming back to ask for funds to continue this, but the doors will be done by CPA.
Mrs. Sakara, can you just give your name and title so the viewing audience knows who you are?
Oh, Pamela Sequeira, Executive Director.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll start.
Are they playing coffee cups?
With the $50,000, is this for the one particular building, the one?
No, it's all the buildings, it's all the doors for the whole complex. Exterior doors and storm doors will be done on all the, all 40 units.
So I'm assuming when you say that they're envelope renovations, that you're talking about exterior renovations only with new windows, et cetera, but not interior renovations?
That's correct.
And is there any kind of plan for interior renovations in the near future, or is this where your emphasis will be for the next 3 years?
Well, for the next 3 years, it'll be just the envelopes until we can get all 5 buildings plus the community building done, and then we will start working on kitchens and baths with the next capital improvement money that comes from the state.
So you'd prefer not to just do each building inside and out, move on to the next building inside and out? So this is your, I'm just asking for the renovation
This
plan.
wasn't their choice.
We don't,
Yeah, they weren't given the choice. DHCD decided that
This is
how
the
project
progress.
was going to move forward.
I understand.
So,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yes. Pam, is there a 20-year capital plan that you're following for this? Is there a 20-year or 30-year capital plan that you are following?
No, we only have a 5-year,
5-year?
5-year plan.
Is there any consideration to doing a 20-year capital plan?
DHCD allows 5 years from the bond money. Every 5 years, we have to do a capital planning, and that's as many years as we've been awarded since I've been there.
And DHCD's reasoning for the prioritization of the doors,
God only knows, not us.
are they fire-rated doors?
Whatever they decide they have to be.
They feel that the doors that are there are inadequate because they're steel doors, and so they want to, and there's no, because of the design of the inside of the units, there's no light in them, so the people leave their doors open all year long, so we're, spending money on heating the buildings, even though, so if we have a little bit of light in the door, they might be inclined to keep it closed and save some heat.
And this is for a storm door as well as the heavy exterior door, so it will be the 2 doors.
I mean, I certainly agree that funds need to be invested in Agawam Village from various sources. I just guess I'm trying to wrap my hands around whether this is part of a larger substantial rehabilitation of the property.
Absolutely. The initial estimate is about $4 million to do the property, to completely bring it back up to a standard that is acceptable, quite frankly. CPC made the decision to put the 50,000 towards doors specifically because we did not want the money to get lost in this grand project and never know or never see what happened with it, kind of a thing. And so when you make a specific bequest, it has to be used for that. And so DHCD understands that, They have no problem with that. But Pam will be coming back to CPC next year, and we will pick another section of the project and probably, most assuredly, help support that. These are, normally community preservation maintained that affordable housing funds would go strictly for the increase on affordable units or affordable inventory in the town. But we have been made to realize that the quality of life for some of our folks here has to be helped. And so that's why we're doing this particular project.
So just one last question, I guess. Is there actually a $4 million commitment today, or is it?
No.
There is not a $4 million commitment?
No, there's a capital improvement plan.
Okay.
But there's no improvement for the funds.
And it won't come from CPC. Just throwing that out there so everybody knows.
All right. Thank you. For the,
Okay.
Thank you for the explanation. I don't have anything else.
More questions? Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3-0-0.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, on Article 35, I understand the CPC has a motion ready for this, so it's ready for you.
Which?
This funding will come out of our estimated annual revenues, and it falls under the category of historic preservation. I'd like to introduce Chairman Robert Blair from the Historic District Commission.
Hi. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as you might be aware, we have 3 historic districts in town. The oldest of which is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. We have never in that time really had proper mapping or graphic details of the boundaries of the historic districts. So this request is to, for a professional land surveyor or a GIS professional to graphically document the exterior boundaries of the 3 districts, and to separately show properties that we would like to bring into the district in a form of a study that will be done, presented separately to the Board of Selectmen. We've been approached by several property owners to have their properties included in the historic district that would be involved with an expansion. There's certain procedures that we have to follow with the Massachusetts Historic Commission, the guidelines that we have to follow, and those include mapping. And we don't have any proper mapping. I have an example of what we have currently that if I may.
For the television audience, it's a map that shows the outline of the houses in the district, and they're just darkened and colored in, so that's not considered appropriate from the state level.
That's the map of the oldest of the districts. Kind of looks like it was done by kindergartner.
That's actually quite exquisite when you think about it.
Well, we're trying to get something that can be easily defined and defended, and I don't believe that's what we currently have.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just really have one question. Has there been anyone within the district, any of the homeowners, that have expressed reservation about being part of the district?
No, it's always been the policy of the Historic District Commission to only bring in properties of homeowners that want to be in the district. So part of this study is to first evaluate the historical significance of the property, do the due diligence of survey and historic investigation. And then when we approach the property owners, we do so in a manner that, you know, if they want to be in the district, fine. If not, we don't force that upon people. And that's been our policy, and it's been favorable so far. So I don't see any problem so far with the properties that we're currently looking at. Would probably surprise you. One of them includes the Fearing Tavern. Most people in town think that's already in the district, but it's not. The town presently owns Tremont Nail. We're considering that. Obviously, we'd have to bring that before the board for consideration because there's other issues involved with that property. But there are other homeowners, including we've been approached by members of the Homeowners Association for British Landing, and again, that would all have to be vetted out properly before we would bring that before the board or the town. But part of this is obviously having a graphic representation so that we can show people with a tangible document, which we don't really have right now.
Thank you.
I don't have anything. Nope. I move favorable action on Article 35.
Motion made. Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 400.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, Article 36, the last of our group, another CPC article, and the commission has a motion, and so this is ready for your consideration.
Okay, oh, there we are. We have Brendan Annette from the Coalition for Buzzards Bay and Jesse Ferrara from the Coalition, as well as the Wareham Land Trust. And I would like to turn the presentation over to them, if I may.
I have a map that I'd like to share. I want a copy for each of you.
Yeah, I'm going to actually move back myself.
This is the second part of the project that you presented last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a large format map that we can display further.
It's like a 3 or 4 part project.
So, as was mentioned last year, we brought forth a project which is actually highlighted on the map. The topmost property, the topmost orange polygon, CPC contributed to last year. We were seeking outside funding to match that. We were successful in doing that, and in fact now we have all the funding in place, and we're moving forward with that, the protection of that land. The subject of the article that we're talking about are the properties outlined in red on the map that I've passed out to you. They're focused around the lower Weeweeantic, around the Horseshoe Pond area of the lower Weeweeantic River, and they contain approximately 33 acres. You see that one piece abuts the existing conservation land on the right side of the pond, and the other is contiguous on the west side of the pond, or the left side of your map. The article is such that the CPC would contribute $375,000 towards the acquisition and protection of the two properties. The Town Conservation Commission would outright own the properties on the left-hand side and hold a conservation restriction on the smaller property on the right-hand side.
Are you ready for my motion?
Certainly.
I move favorable action for Article 36.
Motion made. Second for discussion.
The current owner is the Eagle Holt Company. The proposal is that the green shaded parcel to the right-hand side is currently owned by a private conservation organization. The coalition is in the process of taking over ownership and management of that parcel. So the proposal is that because that's contiguous with the smaller parcel, that the contiguous management of it would be appropriate for the coalition to own and manage that property. All of these properties require the double protection of having a conservation restriction on them, and the town would hold that conservation restriction. On the other property, the town would own the property. The conservation restriction would be held by the Wareham Land Trust or the Coalition for Buzzards Bay.
Mr. Snyder?
Just one question. Has there been a 21E done on the property?
There has not yet, but that is budgeted in the funds for the overall project. So that's considered an element of due diligence that would be conducted prior to the acquisition of the property. The land use history of the property is there's nothing in the land use history of these parcels that would suggest that there would be a hazardous waste contamination issue on these properties.
Okay, thank you.
One more question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
On these particular properties, there's no history of any kind of activity that would contribute to hazardous waste. What about any of the abutting properties? So nothing in the area, there's not...
Immediately abutting, I'm not aware of anything, no.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes. Okay, what Nan is referring to, the property on the downstream end of the pond in the vicinity of the Horseshoe Dam has a historic land use as an iron foundry, and some folks have expressed concern about that. The United States EPA actually contracted a study which was released early last year, about a year ago, February. I've looked through that study. It essentially indicated, it actually looked at downstream sediment in the Weewantic estuary as well as soils on that particular property, which is not these properties. I want to make that clear. And there was while there was some indication of some contamination found in the sediments down in the bay, there was no way to connect them to that particular property. I think that was sort of the driving force of that concern, and that existing study indicated that wasn't the case. I've had discussions with both representatives from the US EPA and the Massachusetts DEP regarding that. I'm bringing that up at Nan's request and thinking that because both of you asked those questions that might be relevant because the property is nearby on Horseshoe Pond, but it is not the subject properties that we're talking about.
Now on that map, could you point out the area you were just talking about? Any other questions?
I'd just like to know, does anybody know what the vote of the Concom was on this? Nan?
5-4.
5-4?
I believe they approved it, but there might have been one or two that voted against it. But it did pass.
Yes.
FinCom.
The FinCom voted 5-4. What was the Conservation Commission
Right.
vote is Mr. Snyder's question.
Unanimous? Sorry.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
I thought you said FinCom. so.
If I could, just very briefly, as you can see, this particular area is being impacted by development. You know, you've got the potential of Walmart going over there and polluting everything. And well, trust me, my son was a manager. I know what they do. So the issue becomes, how do we protect the property that most impacts other areas? And this is the Wee Wee Antic River corridor, and this is phase 2. Town meeting approved the initial purchases last year. We're asking them to go one step further and approve some more steps this year. And it's all to help the Wee Wee Antic and the Buzzards Bay area. So it's an extremely fragile and very important area for the health of our community. Yeah. And it's absolutely gorgeous, too.
Any other questions?
No, sir. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
made.
Oh, wait a minute, you can't
All in
make the
favor?
motion.
No.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Kara, make the motion.
I
No, she
made,
already
no, I
did.
made the
Oh, she already
motion.
made
Ellen
it.
That's why I
seconded.
asked, any questions? If there aren't any, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 400.
Thank you
Number
very
36.
much.
Mr. Chair, that would conclude our review of the town meeting warrants.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Now, Mr.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
we do have this letter that was in our packet. Do we have to address this surplus boat issue tonight, or can we put that off to another?
No, I don't think.
No?
I think we're putting that on.
Okay.
Any other town business?
It's not on the agenda, is it?
No, I was going to bring it up under any other town business. I don't know why it's showing up. I know I've seen it before. I don't know why it's showing up now. What? What? Okay. You got to speak up.
Any other town business?
I think Mr. Judici is here waiting for us,
Right,
yes?
we can do this and then we'll just jump right to him. Mike, any other town business? Kara,
No, sir.
you have anything on sewer? If there's no other one, we're gonna go back to Mike Judici. And Mr. Mark Gifford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Judici from CDM, for the record. I do have a quick bullet list of items, if I may. In the interest of time, given the lateness, I will move as quickly as possible. Obviously, feel free to jump in with any comments or questions. I'll give you just a quick overview of the status of the construction at this point. As you know, Contract 1 is completed. They're down to literally 2 or 3 punch list items remaining in terms of restoration in a couple of areas. In Contract 2, all the sewers are installed. They actually did paving within the last couple of days, yesterday and today. All of the Oakdale area was paved. That's just the initial 2-inch binder. They'll be coming back at a later date to put in the final overlay on top of that. They were also working in Route 6 today, I believe, doing some paving. And they'll be finishing that up shortly as well. So at this point for Contract 2, in addition to some additional paving and pipe testing and some restoration work, the major pieces of construction that remain are the 4 pumping stations. which is the main reason or main issue we want to discuss tonight. You should have 2 letters, excuse me, that we submitted over the last couple of months. The first one was dated March 8th, and that was us transmitting to you the contractor's request for an extension of their contract time. Their contract officially, actually, contract time ran through early March, as you may or may not be aware. The main reason for their extension request is related to the pumping stations. As most of you know, 3 of the 4 pumping stations were relocated after the contract was bid for several different reasons, primarily associated with property owner issues. So they had asked for an extension of time through the end of July in order to complete that work. So we thought that they were justified in that request, given the changes that were made to those pumping stations after the contract was bid. The second letter that we submitted on April 14th is associated, conveys the costs on our end associated with that extension of time. That additional 5 months, it goes beyond the contract time that was originally anticipated for this work for us to oversee the construction. This is just associated with actual field supervision. There are 2 components of our services during construction contract. The first has to do with office activities. That is not impacted by this extension. It's, as I said, just associated with field oversight of the construction during that extension. So what we have requested is an extension for the contractor through the end of July. Associated with that are additional costs to oversee that construction. A portion of that cost is for MBE, WBE requirements that are associated with the SRF funding for this project. So what we have requested is a transfer of funds from the way the original services contract was set up. There were 3 separate contracts, as you know, each with associated services during construction costs. So we've asked for transfer of some of those funds from funds that were slated for contract 3 to move into contract 2 to cover those additional costs. And then at the time, once contract 3, if that goes forward, we'll have to revisit those costs and see what funds remain to cover that construction oversight.
Now, you mentioned on this is taken from contract number 3. Now, if number 3 doesn't go out, then what happens with?
If contract 3 doesn't go out,
Right.
then the funds that were slated for that obviously would not be expended.
But you were looking for, what was that figure again? You were looking to transfer?
It was $140,000.
So what does that 140 come out of? Because you're transferring out of 3, and if 3 doesn't go on at all.
Correct. So the way the contract was originally set up, there were 3 pools, one for each of the 3 construction contracts. So rather than asking for an amendment to the overall contract, there's still a sum of money that has been held for contract 3 if that did go forward. So what we're asking, since we haven't reached the upper limit of our overall contract for overseeing all 3 contracts, we transfer funds from 3 into 2 in order to cover the additional costs for that time extension.
And if we do go on with number 3?
And if you do go on with 3, then we'd need to revisit that number, and we'd need to see if we need an amendment at that point. Our feeling was it didn't make sense to us to ask you for an amendment to our overall contract when there's still money sitting in in the contract 3 account, if you will. When we originally set this contract up, we had requested that it was not broken up into the contracts, just so we were able to cover such an occurrence. The board at that time wanted us to cover, put that total appropriation, total contract amount into 3 separate contracts is what we did. So now we're not authorized to move money between those contracts without your permission. That's why
Hey,
we're
you know, in your memo right here, you got the bid advertised late date for contract 3. Is that still on schedule? You have it here for late May.
That's correct. We're hoping within the next couple of weeks to get that contract out to bid. That would allow us to open bids mid to late June. We're looking at either the 16th or the 23rd of June.
And we'll still be in line with all the funding.
At that point, you need to make a decision. As we discussed earlier, the state wants a decision from the town whether you're going to go forward with contracts, with contract 3 or not. So at that time, you'd need to make a decision based on
Any other questions
the
from
way
the board? Okay.
Yes.
some of the bids come in.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chair. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Schneider, you want to go?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Judici, $140,000, whether it comes from a contract that hasn't been bid yet or not, is real dollars to the people in this contract. And we've had this conversation before about how this represents real money to folks. People are already upset about these betterment fees and not understanding how come this has to happen. Not only are the people in contract 2 now going to be responsible for this $140,000, correct? But now when we get into contract 3, if we get into contract 3, we could be potentially looking at a change order, which is going to add more money to what's already been predicted to be an exorbitant betterment. With that said, I also want to point out that we talked about bidding contract 3 several months ago. If you don't open bids till mid-June, you're going to run us right up against that June 30th timeline. And I can't speak for any other member on this board, but that is a big decision, an extremely costly project for folks. And I don't want to be having to make a decision in a very short amount of time. I don't know how quick you can get that bid out, but you guys have been aware of this for quite some time. And when your people are looking at 30,000 plus betterment fees on their homes, that's a real serious consideration that we need to take into account. It's not a decision that I would be comfortable making on a short timeline. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Snyder?
I think that similar question. I'm looking at the letter, and it says, by using this approach, there will be no additional cost to the town at this time, because we're adding it to the back end of the contract, basically. Is that correct?
Correct. As I said, just our approach was, rather than asking for an amendment, since there are additional funds left under our total contract amount, it just didn't seem to make sense to ask for an amendment to increase the upper limit of our contract, since there were additional funds that were originally slated for contract 3.
Okay. So at the end of the day, if contract 3 doesn't move forward, 140,000, is that how I'm reading this?
Correct.
Gets added to contract 2.
That's correct.
Okay. Which is
and then the remaining balance, I'm sorry.
Which is work that actually did take place under contract 2?
It will take place moving forward.
It's going to get added regardless to contract 2, correct? Whether contract 3 goes forward or not, that $140,000 belongs under contract 2.
What we're saying is that in order to oversee the extended time that the contractor has asked for, we need more money. And I hear what you're saying, and I totally agree. I know it is money, and it's real money that comes out of people's pockets. I understand that.
That people work for.
Absolutely.
Hard.
Absolutely. It's no question.
I'm looking at this letter that was dated, the one that I have is dated March 24th. And it is regarding the extension from March 9th to July 31st, which isn't a whole lot of time to ask for an extension. I mean, it certainly must have been determined earlier than that you'd need an extension. Just an observation. But That said, I have to agree with my colleagues. I can't agree with taking anything from contract 3 to pay for bills for contract 2, when contract 3 hasn't gone out for bid yet. We already are seeing escalating costs, and again, it's gonna just be robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I would prefer an amendment.
Mr. Judici, Mr. Chairman, through you, if I may ask, I recall from being at the Board of Selectmen meetings, attending them, was the contract extension, maybe Mr. Gifford, you can elaborate on this, was this driven as a result of the residents' desires to move?
Yes, sir. It was the residents' desire to move the pump stations.
Okay.
One in Cromieset, and there was another one on Avenue A. There was a lot of discussion of moving it from one spot to the other, and that's what delayed the project.
Okay, so discussions took place with the residents. They knew that there were going to be additional costs on contract 2 associated with this?
I can't speak for the residents, but
I'm not sure that that was ever really mentioned.
Well, I guess my question is,
Good point.
I guess my question is, in the meetings that took place, were they told that the moving of the pump stations would cost additional?
We did have discussions in front of this board at the time. Certainly, we didn't know the dollar value at that time. The main, as I said, this is associated with a time extension. We didn't know that there would be a time extension at that time. We did talk about additional construction costs that would be incurred, both for relaying the pipeline to feed the new pumping station locations. And in several cases, the pipes were deeper than they were on the as-bid design, and costs associated with the actual pumping station construction themselves. And there are costs associated with those, and the contractor has given us his estimate, or his first preliminary costs on the pumping station construction costs increases. We have gone through them, and we're in the process of negotiating those with him as well. So there are, and that was another next item on the agenda. Those costs are being negotiated at this point. So over and above the $140,000, there will be additional costs, essentially just associated with construction of those pumping stations.
Clearly, none of us are ever happy when additional costs are added
Absolutely.
onto the back of a project. But I guess if we went into this knowing that those costs were going to be added, we had an idea of what those costs were going to be?
We didn't know the full magnitude, but we certainly talked in the range of, $100,000 for at least the 2 Cromieset pumping stations that were the topic of discussion at that point.
And what happens from your standpoint with respect to the contract if we don't approve this transfer of funds?
That's a question that I can't really answer for you. What I can tell you is that our ability to keep someone on the site based on our existing contract will take us through the beginning of June. And at that point, it's not a decision for me to make, and I can't tell you what would happen at that point. And
Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Gifford, can you help us out with this? What would happen?
I can't speak for CDM, but I assume they'll stop work.
Mm-hmm.
There is also a change order coming for the relocation of the pump stations, which this board will have to approve. You've known it's been coming for a long time, and we've been through litigation and everything else. That's why I wanted Mr. Judici here, so to get this out in the open, so we all know where we are, and we're all on the same page.
Right. And that's
I mean, it's sort of hard to stop the project now.
Mr. Gifford, I think and I understand we have 2 new board members, but I mean, as a board, we understood that there were going to be costs associated with the moving of those 2 pump stations, and that was made very clear to us. Mm-hmm. I do not believe that we were ever advised by CDM that we could be looking at a 6-figure, what's essentially an increase in the contract. a six-figure increase for oversight, which really amounts to how many days? 100 and, you had it.
It's 144 days. It's
144
5 months.
days. So I'm not that good at math. We all know that, but that's like a lot of money for not that many days. And my concern here, and I would prefer, Mr. Chair, to see this in a change order, because, and then we can vote on it as a change order, and it will be on the agenda, and the contract two people can come out and, you know, sit at the board meeting and hear what has, watch it at home, however they prefer. But I am really concerned about these betterments. I mean, there are a lot of people in their homes that are underwater already. Their homes aren't valued at what they paid for them, and these betterments can, you know, can cause them real hardship.
Mr. Chairman, through you, Kara, again, I certainly, I agree with you with respect to keeping betterments at a minimum. I guess my next question would be, if the contractor stops work at this point, what point are we at? I mean, do we have roads that are open? We have potential hazards. Is that correct?
That's correct. And,
So-
and I'm sorry.
So we just have a job that's uncompleted and.
Yeah, I mean, from his standpoint, he's under contract to do the work. Whether you grant him a time extension or not, he is under contract and bonded to complete the project. The time extension is really just a paper exercise in terms of extending his contract with the town, but he's still contracted for the scope of work. So the contractor is not going to pick up and go away because the town has some remedies against him to make sure he completes the work. He has a bond to complete it if he decides to step away, which he wouldn't. He's a very reputable contractor. The bonding company would come in and finish the project. So from that standpoint, the extension itself is really just a paper exercise, if you will. And understandably, the costs associated with that extension are not just a paper exercise. From our standpoint, it's obviously just a contractual issue with the town. Just to address your comment, Mrs. Winslow, on the change order, the construction costs certainly are going to be wrapped up into a change order for your review and approval. We were hoping to have that done for this meeting. It wasn't done. As I said earlier, we're still negotiating with the contractor, trying to get that cost down as much as we can. So you would certainly be seeing and voting on that change order. Typically, this transfer of funds or amendment with us, however you want to describe it, however the board decides to proceed or not proceed, is a separate exercise, if you will, just in the contractual relationship between CDM and the town. So whether it's done through a transfer or an amendment wasn't necessarily a change order. Change order would be the construction costs, just for clarification.
And the 140,000, is that inclusive of the change order, or is that just for you?
That is for the construction oversight. Of that 140,000, just over 50,000 of that, as I said, is for MBE, WBE participation. That's a requirement of the SRF program. We do have a second person in the field that works for an MBE firm to help fulfill that requirement. And the rest of that.
So it's more like $90,000.
Correct.
For 144 days of.
We have one. Chris Sharp is our chief resident engineer. He's on site all the time,
Yeah.
and we supplement Chris and the MBE resident engineer with additional staff as necessary, depending on what is happening in the job at the time. There are multiple crews working. Installing pipe, installing paving, testing, installing pumping stations. So there'll be multiple crews working at any given time. So we supplement Chris with a second person on an as-needed basis.
Pardon me, 1 second. Could I make a motion that we go beyond the hour of 10, please?
Second.
Motion made and second beyond 10. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Mr. Chair, as a practical matter, I think we should address the time extension for the contractor.
We could do that as a separate motion. The time extension is on our part because we did authorize
Mhm.
the changes.
Right.
And we're not imposing any liquidated damages on the contractor for coming in late. But we did all vote on it, and I thought it was brought up even when we did Avenue A that there was going to be changes in the price, and everybody agreed on it. So right now, we got the extension, and the extension came in to us. It's dated March 8th, and we got it March 9th, I think, late. But it's here, and it has to be done. And bottom dollar is our total contract amount. Looking at it right now, are we going to be within the budget that we had for the total amount of all three contracts? Just by transferring the funds over. I know you haven't got prices for contract 3, so it's going to be muted, but for what you have estimated, will we still be within that range that we got from the state, from the federal government?
With the original approach, certainly, yes.
Right.
You're talking about within the original
15
total loan amount
total
for
loan
the
amount,
complete
right.
program, all three contracts, yes. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request from P. Giosio and Sons Incorporated for a time extension of 144 calendar days from March 9th, 2011 to July 31st, 2011, per their letter dated February 24th, 2011, which was received in our office on April 13th, 2011.
Motion made for the extension of time, 144 days to July 31st, 2011. I have a second on that. Motion made and second. If there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 4-0-0. Now we're back to the 140. Previously, it says it was transferred from contract 2 to contract 3. So now you're just bringing it back to 2, where it originally was. So all you're taking is 40,000 from 3.
Correct, and I failed to make that point, and I can't recall exactly why it happened, but after the original contract was divided between the three, our original contract was divided between the three contracts. There was a transfer that was made from contract 2 to contract 3. The only thing I can think is that at the time, some of the areas were moving from one contract to another, and we were perhaps trying to balance the three contracts so there was an equal amount, or close to an equal amount in each of the three contracts. So at that time, there was $100,000 that was moved out of contract 2 into contract 3. That's correct. So this would be replacing that back into contract 2 with an additional $40,000 from contract 3. And again, the bottom line of our contract would not change. It's just the allocation between the three contracts for the oversight.
And the way you have it figured out for now, for contract 3, it's within the budget lines.
I mean, your original question was the total cost
Right.
still within the SRF amount, and it is. As we did state in the letter, contract 3, what would be remaining in contract 3 may not be sufficient for the oversight, so we may need additional funds to
Right now,
complete the
project's
oversight of
going,
contract
and
3.
Can't stop it, so.
Mr. Chair, through you, why was $100,000 transferred from 2 to 3 originally? Do you know?
I apologize, but I do not know exactly why, and it was news to me until I saw this letter that one of my colleagues prepared. And as I said, the only thing I can theorize is that we were trying to balance out the three contracts if in case one of the areas shifted from one contract to another. At that time, there was some shuffling between the contracts. For various reasons, some areas were moving from one contract to another. So that's all I can theorize. It is confusing.
Yeah, it is.
I apologize.
And he does say this will be no additional cost to the town at this time, but.
At this time.
Right.
It'll be on the other end.
Yeah,
Right.
right, and we want to be upfront about that. You know, if contract 3 goes forward, what is left in there may not be enough to oversee that. So it's something we'll need to revisit at that time.
But, Mr. Chairman, you said that this is, the board had authorized CDM to move forward with this. That's correct?
Right.
At the time, we didn't envision a contract time extension. At that point, we were talking in terms of construction costs, and it was clear that there would be additional costs. We never envisioned that things would drag out as much as they did. As you probably remember, the easements just got signed within the last month or so, I believe, on at least 2 of the properties. So,
Why is that, Mr. Judici? What was the delay? I mean, I do have a very good recollection of that meeting, and I mean, we were all really concerned about the additional costs, and I
Absolutely.
don't ever remember there being a discussion about a 144-day delay in relation to the moving of the pump station. So maybe I missed something.
we didn't either. I don't know what.
So what caused it?
Well, Mr. Chairman, through you.
Yes.
If you remember, when Gioso, I can remember in the Cromieset area, they were checkerboard moving down the road because they didn't know where the pump station was going. And that was delaying them. And there was a lot of delay until they were given the authority to start work with a pump station were later on approved to go or relocated. There was one on Mattapoisett Road. Was it Mattapoisett? No. I went to Mattapoisett. But there were 2 pump stations that were moved in the Cromieset area themselves.
Yeah, one was Mattapoisett, and the other one
Mattapoisett.
was moved in the middle of the street where they had to do additional work
And Cromieset.
on that, right.
Mr. Chairman, the hour is getting late and we still have a lot of business to conduct. I think that by authorizing the continuance of the work at this point, I'd like to bring this back for for further discussion. I'd like to have some more information on this issue, and hold off on the authorization of the transfer.
We have till June, so
So, Mike, when's our next meeting? When's the next meeting on the site?
I believe it's the 30th.
I don't know.
I wasn't at the last meeting.
Yeah.
Did they cancel it? I think they might have. I think because of the holiday, I think they might have moved it.
Could be.
Yeah, I don't have it.
We can let you, I haven't seen the schedule, Mr. Cruz.
Tentative the 25th, if we haven't set it concrete.
Right, because I thought maybe they had changed it back. They said the work was,
Mr. Chairman, through you, can Mr. Campina add anything to this discussion?
Mr. Campaigner?
My only concern in this whole thing, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Andrews, and the board, I'm looking at some numbers, budget numbers, and I'm listening to Mr. Judici, and I need to get some explanations because contract 1, capital, says I still have $950,000 outstanding in project 1, and it's 98.9% complete as far as the financing. There's $72,000 remaining in that, and it says here I have $950,000 outstanding. I'd like to get some clarification on all these things before we do anything when it comes to expending funds. We already spent $840 out of contract 3. There's no money in it, so I'd like to get that explained. So I think this, as I hear the board say, there's a lot of questions that we have to get answered, and I think we got to sit down and really look at these numbers, because as I look at them, I'm confused. When I'm told that I expended all the money out of contract 1, but I still have a debt here of $950,000, I don't know what it means, and I'm concerned. So I agree, I think we should hold off, regather, look at all these numbers and see where we really are before we expend another penny.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to table this matter to our first meeting in June. And in that time frame, if the gentleman sitting before us can give us whatever information they have available, to enlighten us on this situation, that would be great.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any for discussion? If none, we'll vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 400.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I have one other,
Good.
before we finish, 2 seconds, I would like to inform you, I'm sure you know, I'm sure Mr. Andrews and Mr. Cruz knows, that there was an additional change order for the drainage in the Oakdale area, which is a zero-cost change order to the betterment. It was funded through Chapter 90. That work has been done and completed. And in fact, the bill has been sent, and a reimbursement will be up to Mr. Andrews' office tomorrow
Great.
to be reimbursed through the state.
Mark, I have one
Thank
other
you.
question for you. If they can get the figures to you sooner than our next meeting, because I think it's June 10th, we can always call a meeting for the sewer commissioners. If
Good
we
point.
have to, you know what I mean? If you get the before, since we're the
Yeah,
sewer
I would
commissioners.
I'd certainly be happy to do
And
that.
I do have a spreadsheet, which Mr. Campina was talking about, which breaks down contract 1, contract 2, and contract 3,
Right.
exactly what was appropriated for each contract and what has been expended today.
Okay, that'll be good. And then if we need one before, we'll just have a sewer commissioner
I'll,
meeting.
I'll try to get it to you by the
Okay.
end of the week, if not.
How does the
fir-
board
first
feel on
next
that?
week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Yes. Well, we need a motion to adjourn first.
Are you making the motion?
No, I think we,
Chair? You have to read it.
do we have a motion to adjourn yet? Yeah, we'll be going into executive session, and we're not going to return to open meeting. Article number 3.
you have to read number 3.
Right. But, yeah, article number 3. So we have a motion to adjourn.
We can't adjourn, we're going
Okay.
to executive session.
Motion number 3, to discuss strategy and conduct collective bargaining, to discuss strategy and conduct bargaining with non-union personnel, to discuss strategy related to litigation. If discussion in open session will have a detrimental effect on the position of the government body, the opposing side may not be present.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Whoever.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn?
We can't adjourn. Can we just take a recess, 5-minute recess?
That sounds like a winner to me.
Point of order, you wanna have a vote on going in executive session?
They just did.
Oh,
We just
roll call. Mr. Cruz, we did forget roll call.
Roll call, sorry, but thank you. Point of order taken. But roll call, Ellen?
Yes.
Walter, yes? Mike?
Yes.
Sarah? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
You are
Barnes.
correct.